Hello, everyone, and welcome to the stream. I am Razim, and today we are doing some more tabletop preparation for our new Hunter the Reckoning 5e tabletop campaign, which will be running in the New World of Darkness series, I suppose is the term.
It's technically setting. And New World of Darkness is the community term. It's actually like Chronicles of
Chronicles of
Ancient
Darkness
or something. Chronicles of Darkness, yeah. It doesn't matter. If you say, New World of Darkness, people know you're talking about.
Ah, fair enough. Well, we left off in the middle of doing character creation.
Yeah, there wasn't too much left of it, but there was at least one important aspect
Oh,
that we had not covered. But first of all, I just want to double check in the in the time since last week, has everyone gone through and at least put out a provisional list of skills, edges, and perks?
yes.
Yes, more or less, I believe.
All right.
I'm still finalizing the edges and perks, but yes, I
Okay. Well,
gotta.
this is just a reminder, and I did mention this last time, but this is a reminder. After we get a couple sessions in, what we're going to do is I'm going to do like little individual sit downs with you if you aren't entirely happy with how your skills and everything are being laid out. This means that you don't have to be too worried about being married to your edges, perks, and skills at the very, very beginning. This is going to be a new system for basically everyone. At least, if not in terms of World of Darkness, in terms of this specific system of Hunter the Reckoning 5e.
Yes.
So there's going to be a little bit of collaboration here, including me. I have not ran Hunter the Reckoning 5e before. I know how this stuff works. I've read through the book multiple times. I've read through, various helper books such as Second Inquisition. But I will say that, this is going to be a collaborative experience of figuring this shit out.
Fair enough.
But since everyone at least either has a provisional or is currently making a provisional skill, edge, and perk list, what we can start discussing now is the next important part that we didn't really get to go over, which specifically was everyone's equipment. There's no real listed start for the various equipment that you have available. So what we're going to do is, everyone's at least going to have a weapon of some kind. You can ask for armor if you want armor. Stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no real amount that you can have, but I do want everyone to at least have some sort of weapon, even if it's even if it's just like a 22 pistol that you keep on you. And I will warn you that using normal mortal weapons against the supernatural is generally not effective.
Makes sense.
So this is more just your own personal defense weapon, unless you have something that actually, can put the hurtin' on some supernatural shit. But I do want everyone to have at least a weapon. And also, if you want to, you can also take an armor up to a flak jacket if you went with the martial. If you didn't go with martial, everyone else could get up to ballistic cloth if you want ballistic cloth.
Wait, what's martial again?
It's
The
one
creed.
of the creeds.
Okay.
The martial creed. Now, this is basically only really useful to not dying due to getting shot immediately. Again, even a vampire can and will kill you, even if you have armor.
Mhm. Yeah, that's the
So
thing.
what I'm hearing is armor is only effective against other humans.
No, sometimes a vampire will pull out a gun.
Yeah, a vampire can pull out a gun. Also, vampires can thrall people who have guns.
Mm-hmm.
So, acting like you're not going to get shot just because it's a vampire is wrong. Just because one, a vampire can and will shoot you, and
much-
second of all, they can and will have other people that will shoot you.
Pretty much every supernatural faction does use firearms or weapons just because they can't always. It is basically a offense worthy of death for some of them to reveal the supernatural to mortals.
Right.
Unless they plan to like kill the mortals and leave no witnesses.
Sense.
Yeah. So most factions will at least most supernatural beings will at least have a faction that explicitly does not want the mortals to find out about them. This is a survival tactic for them because if the entirety of humanity found out about the supernatural and all of its nastiness and what they do, the supernatural would probably go extinct very fast.
Yeah.
There's a reason that if you look at books that are explicitly in the Dark Ages period, even the most secretive factions really don't give a shit if the mortals find out. But now
You
that the
got the
mortals have things
Inquisitions.
now that we've got the Inquisitions going on, and mortals have access to things like nukes, the supernatural factions are very much interested in not being found out, mostly.
Makes sense to me.
This changes, of course, by the faction, but vampires are notorious for one of the big groups. They will do whatever it takes to make sure no one finds out about them.
Vampire
Two of them,
shoots someone
because
so
because technically speaking, of the three major vampire factions, two of them are upholding the Masquerade.
The more thinking of the Sabbat doesn't really care as much.
Yeah, the Sabbat
Yes.
don't give a shit.
To be fair, though, they usually just kill everyone, so there isn't
Yeah,
any witness.
I'm just saying, both the Camarilla and the Anarchs will, in fact, hold up the
Yes.
Masquerade a lot. So
Yes.
you got a 2/3 majority there.
I always put the Anarchs lower than the Camera and the Sabbat, but that was just me.
Well, it's a little bit weird considering the fact that they continually have success and then fuck it up.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then again, that's also the Sabbat.
Yes.
So that's why I put it all on the same listing, because it's the Sabbat does things and then it goes to shit for them, and then the Anarchs do things and then it goes to shit for them. It's just that the Anarch success tends to last a bit longer than the Sabbat, but also they have different goals compared to the Sabbat.
This is true. Yeah, no, if you ever get into 10 feet of a vampire and you don't have fire or really, really good with a melee weapon, you're probably going to get your throat ripped out before you realize what's going on.
This is why I continually talk about even vampires being able to rip you in half, quite literally.
The very, very basic abilities of vampires, one that basically every vampire takes, is celerity, which is super speed, and they also have super strength and super endurance. Those are just Those 3 are just rank and file basic abilities that any vampire can take, and they usually take them.
Yeah. And if you find one that didn't take it, you need to be even more afraid, because what the fuck do they have it instead?
Sounds scary.
That means they
It's because it
probably...
is.
Yeah. Like, for example, one of the groups called the La Sombra can manipulate shadows. They can use your own shadow to strangle you to death with it. Or they can literally give life to your shadow and make it try to kill you while they watch.
And let's not talk about the Malkavians.
or the Simisi.
The Tzimitzi.
Oh, yes. I've always heard it
supposed
pronounced.
to be a campaign where your goal wasn't to try to like murder hobo us at every turn.
Oh, it's not. But that's the thing. It's like these are things that the player characters, as a vampire, can take these abilities.
Oh.
Like
Yeah,
all these things.
Yeah.
Like this is like if we were playing vampire right now. If you were playing a La Sombra, you could take the shadow manipulation ability. Like that's rank and file ability for them.
You can also just be a chucklefuck Bruja with a shit ton of potence and laugh.
And yeah.
Yeah.
One joke that I like to make about the ones that focus on potence is like, oh, you know, it's just a vampire. They move pretty fast. They juggle dumpsters.
That's their super strength.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's the thing though. It's like to us as hunters, that's fucking terrifying, and they could just literally snap us like twigs. For a vampire player character, that's basic starting character stuff for them.
Yes.
Like that's the degree of power difference for us.
Which brings me to a very important point that I'm going to reiterate, because I talked about this a couple times. You guys are not going to be man-fighting the supernatural. You're going to be doing research, intrigue, and finding out how you're going to cap the supernatural without it getting to tear you in half.
Welcome to The Witcher.
Like, what I would recommend, if you're dealing with the vampire, find out where the vampire is sleeping during the day, blow the entire building up, then set the remains of the building on fire just to be certain.
That's if you wanted to be reasonable and were allowed to be Captain Collateral. Sadly,
Yeah.
you are working for a government agency, so you may not, in fact, be allowed to be Captain Collateral.
That's fair. I mean, like, if you are dealing with something that has to die, that's like the go-to method of dealing with a vampire.
But yeah, so I'm going to go over a little bit of basic information that, you know, you guys would kind of already know or would have explained to you really damn fast. Number one, you guys are going to be forming a UTR, which is an unusual threat response. And you guys are basically going to be able to name your own UTR. It doesn't really matter what your UTR is called so long as it has like a call sign. So you guys get to decide on a call sign. Second of all, you work, technically speaking, under the Special Affairs Division, but you take orders from First Light, which is a member of the Coalition. First Light is an organization that does not have any field agents. Instead, it uses U.S. government field agents in order to do its work.
So they're dispatch.
Just to go... Yes, they are dispatch. When they say jump, and whatever organization you're a part of asks how high. You do not fuck around when a First Light, dispatcher tells you to go do something or go somewhere. That's where you're going. Because they are one of the 5 members of the Coalition, which is the big boy, worldwide, global, supernatural fighting effort. They are, in fact, the extrajudicial entity. So, let's just go ahead and go up
They're
the pipeline.
Interpol.
You guys are a UTR. you work for the Special Affairs Division and take orders from First Light, who is a member of the Coalition. However, you guys are on a little bit of a side grade because, technically speaking, the people that you're working for are a technocracy hidden cell inside of the Special Affairs Division and First Light. Because they do this, they infiltrate various things in order to form cells. And because you guys wanted to work for the technocracy, this means you're going to be a part of a technocracy cell. Now, to put it in perspective, this is already technically a thing where mages will in fact work with the Coalition. But you're going to be a part of a hidden cell where, you know, you're going to be working for the technocracy. It's just that in the actual operational hierarchy, on the official side of things, that's where you rank. Because Coalition, First Light, Special Affairs Division, you guys.
Just say that we're at the bottom of the barrel.
Oh, it's because you're not, actually.
I was just joking.
Other important things is that if you guys meet hunters that are not a part of an organization, and they know that you're a part of an organization, they will spit in your face and basically call you a bitch. This is because most solo hunters absolutely despise organizations because you are literally working with a possibly corrupt entity to try to end corruption.
Sense?
Ah, the United States.
Yes, you are literally working for the United States government.
Rolling my eyes.
So, those are some important notes about, like, you know, your political position. Other important notes is that you guys are going to be going to a briefing in this session relating to the various, you're going to get like a little like kiddie course on supernatural threats and basically where your jurisdiction lies and what your responsibilities are. And also stuff like, you know, what to do if you're arrested while doing your duty. Because, you know, you aren't going to be crip walking out onto the field in full, like, you know, Special Affairs Division gear. You guys are a UTR team that is dedicated to being basically like an investigation and first response group. So you're effectively going to be plainclothes officers, which means you can get arrested.
Oh no.
So you'll also get to go and, you know, you'll get a little bit of instruction for how to deal with if, in fact, you get arrested. Because there are, in fact, supernatural threats that will turn into a human body when you kill it. So, you know, if you're standing over that and high-fiving over a job well done, and police roll up onto the scene, all they see is a bunch of people covered in blood high-fiving over a dead body.
Yeah, we killed him. All right. Oh, police.
So, I just want to point out that, you know, you guys are going to be having to deal with some of this stuff at some point, sometime.
Sense.
And just to reiterate, you will be going and starting in Washington, D.C.
Ooh.
Because government. This is going to basically, Session 0, which is this, is basically going to be a little bit of a mini training episode, explanation, like, in-world for your characters, as well as you guys basically getting kitted with the equipment that you want, either then or basically, like, you know, being able to, like, pick up your gear that you've already sourced ahead of time if you want it to be sourced ahead of time.
My sweet little.
So does anyone... what'd you say?
I was just making a joke. My sweet little ducklings.
Oh, yeah. So, does anyone have any questions about the like logistics of how this session 0 is going to work?
Are we just starting out as members of this thing, or are we being called in, or like where exactly are we starting along the timeline of our
guys-
involvement?
Okay, so basically, you guys would have, like, already accepted the paperwork would have been filed. You, on paper, are already working for the Special Affairs Division and First Light and the Coalition, going up the chain. You guys are going to be coming in for your initial briefing.
Welcome to orientation class. Here's our first lesson, how not to die.
Basically.
Yay!
And this is because this is one of the benefits of actually working for an organization. Because otherwise, if we were doing normal Hunter, with you guys not working for an org, instead being an independent cell, you wouldn't get this.
Oh no.
Because one of the big parts about Hunter is learning about and finding out about the supernatural.
Usually at the worst possible moment.
Yes. Normally, you find out about new things because it fucked up your plans so hardcore and you are fearing for your life. It's very easy to be all like, completely cocky over the fact that, like, you're using a vampire's weakness against them. And then you find out that they're a variant vampire that does not, in fact, actually have this weakness. Get fucked. But
That's why.
so
That's
I
why
do
most. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, so that's why you have to do a lot of investigative work and attempting to like infiltrate like a target circle if it's a vampire, for example.
Also keep in mind, most hunters have a life
what
expectancy.
kind of weapons can we take?
So you guys could take pretty much anything that's on the weapon list.
Okay.
It is not
Shotgun.
unreasonable for you to get a shotgun. It's like
It's like the civilian version. If you have the right round, it's like the civilian version of a grenade launcher.
yeah. And you're going to laugh a lot when the vampire, in fact, does not care about the fact you just blew a hole through its chest.
Yeah, that's why you take special ammunition like dragon's breath or something.
Hope to God fireworks.
Okay. Now, Jits, we're in every single time that me and Kerr put Fear of the Abyss into the players, it's increasing their life expectancy every time.
Yeah, most hunters have a life expectancy of weeks to months. Most hunters do not make it past like the 6-month point
Oh no.
Yes.
because they just walk into something they aren't ready for.
The average hunter will live through about 3 hunts before dying. That would be a 2-dot hunter. A 2-dot hunter is someone who has lived through 3 hunts, maybe.
Yeah, that's why, like, me and Taldaris were talking about. That's why this group called in Ashton to train and help train these people, is because he's been around for so long. If anyone's
Also
going to give them a
because-
high, oh, go ahead.
I was about to say, Ashton literally being there increases your life expectancy by so much.
Oh my, I see.
You are my
honestly,
ducklings.
I think
Okay.
my character's thing, probably, I want to spread factual information on these creatures. I want to make a book on these things.
All right. I mean, I
You
think
want to-
technically speaking, the character that has the most life expectancy is Zim's character, but
Because he is not even there.
How can I survive the
He's going
onslaught
to be
of the
assisted by my
supernatural?
character as well.
He either
though.
has the most or the lowest, depending on if he gets found out. Because if he gets found, we're going to be nowhere
true.
near
If he
to help
gets
him.
tracked. If he gets tracked down, don't get tracked down, Zim. That's all I have to say about that.
If he gets tracked down, my character will be trying to make sure he has a couple of secure ways out.
Say, if my character is meant to be a fist fighter, what kind of weapon should I get?
Knuckle duster.
You can get a
Rob,
knuckle duster if you want.
I do have to ask, are those ways out wheelchair accessible?
Is your character in a wheelchair?
Yes.
Yes.
That will be taken into consideration. Then. I mean,
Scrap the stairs, put in an elevator.
Taldeus, I was thinking of those escape tubes from Men in Black.
Oh, yeah.
Stick him in a
that's,
pneumatic tube and send him off.
His wheelchair is actually just an ejector. Is just an ejector seat.
Element, I would probably.
I'm just
recommend
imagining him accidentally,
I
like, shifting slightly and like elbowing the ejection button and just like.
What were you saying to me, Carp?
I recommend trench knives. Could be very handy weapons.
Trench knives.
Oh, trench
There-
knives are good.
They're basically knuckle dusters, but they have a blade attached to it.
Don't expect a lot from me when it comes to combat. I am Bookman.
Enja, books in this game literally is about 80% of what we need.
Yes,
Yeah.
which is why I say don't expect much from me when it comes to combat.
When it comes to
you're
when it
gonna be
comes to
the one-
fighting, he's going to try and beat the werewolf over the head with a hardback book. Is what he's
Enja,
saying.
just so you know, you're literally going to be in charge of telling everyone how to fucking kill it.
Good luck.
Which is why I have so much health and like 1 in a combat stat.
Where in the book are the trench knives? Is
No,
there
no,
in the book?
There is not,
Ah,
but we can make it.
Yes.
okay.
French knives was like World War One. They went, right, we're going to be fighting in these enclosed spaces. We need specialist weapons for this. Hence, trench
the way
knife
that
was invented.
the way that I'm just gonna
where the
tell
shotgun
it,
came
guys, the
from.
way that I'm
Yes.
just going to say that the trench knives work is that it counts as brass knuckles if you punch, and it counts as light piercing if you stab.
I just searched what a trench knife looks like. Yeah, I see why that is.
Yeah.
That looks cool. That looks cool,
Yes.
actually.
So
Yeah,
again,
they're
if you
really cool.
punch, it's light impact. If you stab, it's light piercing.
Stab.
Knives are also very useful for just like multi-tool. If you need a knife, you have a knife. And knives are very, very handy. They can do a lot of shit.
A lot of damage.
Oh no, not damage. I'm just talking about like useful, like if we need something.
Yeah, I knew what you meant. I just like quoting that.
Would I need to put down like medical equipment?
I don't want to be that specifically pedantic in this system. You know, if you
Okay.
want to play a medic, it's just kind of going to be assumed that you're going to have basic medical supplies.
Yeah. In this system, it's less like crunchy like D&D is. It's more, it's like, would your character have this? Then you probably would have it.
Yeah. It's only when you get to like the really useful shit where you actually have to like rule if you have it or not, like a chaos scope, a GPS tracker, an X scope, stuff like that. If we start pulling stuff out of the Second Inquisition book, there is a bunch of interesting gear that you can get your hands on. Specifically, this is going to have a lot of the stuff that like Zim can get, like attack drones, hawk drones, predator drones, tactical spider robots, shit like that. There's also some very fun, what is it called? There's some very fun anti-supernatural shit that you can get your hands on. Something called an active denial system, an ADS. It's literally a vehicle-mounted heat ray that you can use against creatures to give them, light them on fire.
I'll
Or you
also,
could use...
real quick for the record, My character also has resources 4, so he can probably source a lot of this stuff for y'all. Just don't ask where the money came from.
Yeah.
Corinne shall not care.
I can
Here
also
I
help
am.
people too if you need it.
Literally the most plain, awkward person ever, with a baton just in case children want to throw eggs at him.
I
Whatever
mean,
keeps
Zim,
the
we're
fire burning.
combining your resources 4 with my black market, so we're gonna have some fun.
I also got a high resource.
Yep. By the way, guys, just remember, if you take resources, you have to list down where the money comes from. At least to me. For example, if you're working let's say you're working a 9 to 5, that needs to be listed. If you have like a trust fund that's that you get installments out of, I need to know that it's that version instead. The reason is that I, as a storyteller, am able to threaten your source of income.
No, my job.
Hey, Taldaris.
Now, this is just
Oh, sorry.
just real quick because it's important. Just so you know, you can also do this to your supernatural enemies if they are integrated with society. You can, in fact, basically set the IRS on them if you know how to.
Well, it is tax season.
You also work for the U.S. government, so throwing the book at people is literally in your recommended playbook. I'm literally not even joking. In the Second Inquisition book, it does legitimately list doing stuff like that in order to freeze up, supernatural assets.
Cornell glows with power and bureaucracy.
Like, oh hey, these things have like this powerful artifact in this safety deposit box. Let's freeze them out of that by claiming they're like terrorists or something.
That's literally what the I think it's the Brazilian government does with supernatural assets. They just call them terrorists and kill them.
I was going to make the joke of, for my resources, can I call it compound interest?
Sure, so
would
long as it's
probably
like,
come from like research patents.
yeah, it doesn't matter exactly like any way in which someone can make money you can list as your resources source of income. It's just that does need to be listed if you took it.
Yeah, I took some old coins that I kept from way back when I was still getting money from the church. Turns out in today's money, they're worth a lot.
Amazing.
Apparently, they're historically relevant. Also, I have a sugar daddy too.
Yeah, that is true. He does have a sugar daddy. By the way, guys, just so you know, you can in fact do things like taser supernatural beings because that still works on them.
Electrical currents cause things to.
Be very careful when they stop going to, because you're going to be very close to them.
By the way, Zim, I'm just gonna real quickly send you a list of shit here. This is out of the Second Inquisition book. This is various drones that you would have access to. So, for example, you can get ULSMs, which is very funny because it's a swarm of robots that have explosive payloads and ram themselves into their target.
Those sound very expensive.
I mean, it's that or get your head torn off. I mean, I'll take the expensive.
I think he'd rather spend the money than, die.
This is
Or have
this
all
is
of you die.
fair.
Yes.
Ah, yes, the U.S. healthcare system.
I already know he's gonna go for there's a robot dog that you're able to get. Like I already know that he's probably gonna end up grabbing that.
Is it that weird looking thing that I've seen in like tech videos?
No, it's it's literally a four-legged robot chassis shaped like a dog. Its nickname is literally called Spot Robot Dog.
I can't wait for you guys to meet Kellen. I am so looking forward to that moment.
Orc.
Don't worry, you may only have to wait a tiny bit.
Spot will
Oh,
You're still gonna have to
prob-
wait though.
Spot will probably mostly be hanging around the safe house, though.
Wise.
All right.
Noodle Mark II.
Spot will be, kind of like his. He'll be his assistant
Yeah,
and
that's
protector.
definitely wise to have.
But okay, so does anyone have any questions for me about anything right now? Because the
You said
next thing
that
that we go over.
Sorry,
Yeah,
you
go-
said
go-
that people
go
with the martial creed could pick up a flak jacket.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can go up to a flak jacket if you want one.
I did send you info to other areas.
Yeah, I saw.
Hopefully
Now,
that's
is the
acceptable.
Yep.
Now for shotguns, is that usually assuming like shot like shotgun shot, or is it like a slug?
Usually,
or would that make a difference?
For the most part, it doesn't particularly make a difference. So the only thing that really makes a difference is like, if you're shooting 12 gauge, that's a +4. If you're not, that's generally a +3. The part where it matters is if you're using the either the Dragon's Breath rounds, the Ralphos rounds, Half Loss rounds, stuff like that.
Okay. And the other advantage.
Well, obviously
is
you can't really shoot a half-low with a shotgun, but I'm just like more pointing out that it matters.
Yeah. The nice thing about a shotgun is that you could basically put it. You don't have to fire like a whole clip or change clips. You can just put in a single different bullet.
yeah.
Nice. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Fire, silver, iron. Those are like the big three.
Depending on the supernatural being of whatever persuasion it may be.
Mm-hmm. It's the catch-all. There's definitely going to be exceptions to that rule, but those three will usually, at least something will slow it down a little bit.
I know there are explosive shotgun rounds.
You mean the trying to get Ralphos shotgun rounds?
No, I'm not saying they would be incendiary, but I do know that actual explosive rounds for shotguns exist. That's why I called it a mini grenade launcher.
Oh yeah, that's true, but you could also just get grenade launchers.
True, but I feel like being seen with a grenade launcher raises a lot more questions than a shotgun might, and a grenade launcher also wouldn't necessarily have the capacity or capability of being hidden nearly as well.
When we go in, we're probably not going anywhere close to like public places. Also, even then, like, explosives aren't necessarily going to do as much as you might think.
And I'm not saying they're going to do a lot. I'm just saying that they might have versatility.
Yep.
Like, hey,
Uh,
I'm gonna collapse, something with an explosive round.
All right. So really quickly, I just want to go over a teensy tiny little bit of terminology with you guys that I think is very important.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to certain things, there are names and terms that are used within organizations that I feel like you should be familiar with, because you would be taught these things. First is that there is a term for vampires that is used by First Light and SO13, which is the British version, called blank bodies. That is the term for vampires because on infrared cameras, they're not alive, so they don't show up as anything. So they're called blanks, blank bodies, BBs, stuff like that.
BBs.
Anything like that is referring to a vampire.
Good to know.
If someone is referred to as either a Bella or a Renfield, that means that it is a mortal that is being suspected of working with or for vampires.
Oh, like Belladonna.
Bella or what?
Bella
Renfield.
or Renfield. Renfield.
Where do those names come from?
The Bram Stoker's Dracula for the Renfield.
Mhm.
And probably, I want to say Twilight for the other one, but that's just where my brain goes.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
Oh my god.
A mortal suspected of working with or for vampires.
Yeah, makes sense.
I'm not gonna go into all of the different organizations because if I start talking about all of the different like national versions of the shit, you probably don't care about that right now. The only names you need to know is the SAD, the Special Affairs Division.
They're sad.
Yeah, sad. First Light, which is CIA NSA. That's the organizations that run First Light. It's CIA and NSA. Just so you know, Special Affairs Division is technically FBI, but it's kind of like extrajudicial. IAO, which is Information Awareness Office. They are the ones that are basically it's shadow military for the U.S. government to take down blank bodies and other things like that. So if you go more international, you'll start coming across other nicknames for vampires, which is stuff like a leech, for obvious reasons. Other important ones could be things like if someone is referred to as a Helsing, that means that they're a solo vampire hunter. It's generally used either condescendingly or dismissively, but it is important to note that if you hear that there's like a Helsing in the area, that just means that there is a independent solo vampire hunter who's not working with or for anyone. And then there are two important distinctions. One is Transylvania, and the other is a green zone. A green zone is an area of a city considered to be completely clear of vampires. And Transylvania, as you may guess, is an area controlled by blank bodies.
What was the first one?
Green zone.
Green zone.
Ah.
So, obviously, I'll give you guys reminders when these come up in case you don't remember. It's just that I want to preface the fact that people are going to use jargon around you.
Makes sense.
And obviously, I am giving you like the Cliff Notes version of the lexicons that are available because I don't want to be here all night and you're not going to remember it anyways.
I am trying to note them down.
I know. I know you guys are trying, but I'm just know that I've skipped past like 30 already.
Fair
And
enough.
the last one that I'm going to talk about is Pylon, which is basically just a random person that's being obstructive.
Pylon?
Like not working with the supernatural, not being aggressive. It's like imagine that there's just some civvy that's right there trying to film what's going on.
Yeah.
That's a pylon. That is just in the way.
Must construct additional pylons.
Yep. And if you ever, and I do mean ever, hear something referred to as the Holy Veil, just know that shit's going bad. I'm
Holy
sure Kerr
Veil?
knows what the Holy Veil is.
I have no idea, but it sounds important.
Yes, just know that if that's getting deployed, shit's going bad.
Good to know.
And that's all of the
Hey.
lexicon terminology that's like important for me to at least like, preface you with. Which I know that that's not exactly the most, exciting thing to talk about, but
It's
You know.
important stuff.
It's important.
yeah, it's important stuff for you to be able to understand what's being talked about. So, does anyone have any final questions about the system or the characters before we go ahead and get started with the introduction?
Well, do remember that this whole thing is supposed to be non-canon.
Yes, but it's basically just an introduction. It's not like it's... If it's canon, who cares? If it's not canon, who cares? This is basically just a debriefing. And that's about it.
For the record, I do care that it's non-canon. Because we
Okay.
are definitely
Well,
not
it could
set up
be-
for an actual proper stream and stuff yet.
It's semi-canon.
I'm just saying that like it could be labeled as non-canon. It doesn't matter. This is like a sort of like Schrodinger's thing where it's like it's more to get you guys situated in the world and how things work around here than
This is
caring if
exactly what
it's-
happened.
Just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that was known.
Yep.
Yeah, that's why I made the joke of it's semi-canon. It's canon if we want it to be canon, but otherwise we can just say it never happened to if we need to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but just as a thing, does anyone have any questions on their characters or the system?
I'm good.
Not right now, no.
Yeah, I'm
All right.
decent. Honestly, if anything, I just need to figure out one or two more traits and I'm good. But otherwise, I'm good to go.
All right.
No,
So
I'm-
basically nothing big or important.
I'm still trying to think of what would be a good key for my character. I haven't
Be a
figured that
good
out.
what?
A keystone or whatever it's called.
Oh, a touchstone.
Touchstone, yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
touchstone.
So touchstones literally do not matter right now.
Okay.
Those are going to be stuff for like your in character. Like these are like people that your character cares about or knows, and you can come up with them as before we like get into the actual like session one.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And okay, so before we begin proper, I do just want to point out that this is in fact a setting and a world where it can be brutal and it doesn't pull punches, at least in terms of like, the stuff that's going on. I know that we didn't want to do dismemberment. Is there anything else that people do not want to see in terms of like as a content warning?
Keeping in mind this will be streamed on Twitch and
Yes.
must maintain a certain rating.
Yeah.
Oh,
I did
Oh,
say
what-
last time that that's already being in consideration. I mean, for like,
Players.
yes.
hey, Tal. To what armor can I get up one more time?
If you're playing as a marshal, you can get up to a flak jacket,
Okay.
or the otherwise equivalent. Anything on that line,
And if I'm not playing a
which is a
marshal,
+4. And if you're not playing a marshal, then you can get up to a +2.
okay, Bashila clothes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
With anything.
Okay. So, again, I just want to point out it's perfectly fine if you don't have anything that you would particularly like to rule out. I'm just double checking because this is important for the setting.
I did take Marshall as well, just as a note, so I will also have a flak jacket.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, to give you like some of the nasty shit that you could see, there is a group in specifically Old World of Darkness called the Seventh Generation, whose whole thing is literally abusing and torturing children. And they're one of the groups that you get to go after and do horrible things to as werewolf, which is really cathartic. But yeah, they're nasty.
Yeah. I am just pointing out that this is literally a game where fascists exist. Governments will do extrajudicial torture. Vampires will do absolutely horrific things. Tamitsi will in fact turn someone into a screaming couch just because they can.
Oh.
That's why that's why they're one of the most feared vampires, because of that.
Yes.
They're the flesh crafters,
So,
the flesh shifters.
I'm just pointing out that there can be some nasty stuff. It's not going to pop up all the time. It's not even going to pop up commonly. But I want to know so that way I can completely avoid topics that people do not want to be brought up.
Yeah, I can't think of anything at the top of my head besides this memory, which we have already covered. So,
All right. That is perfectly acceptable. I just, this is the part to be fully transparent about how this world works.
mm-hmm.
So, now that we've gotten that over with, I'm going to do one last review with all of you about how the die system works, because I know some of you were not here when, the entire discussion was going on. So, the way that the dice work is when you're doing a check, I will tell you a pool of 2 different things to roll. It will always be 2 different things, and normally it will be an attribute and a skill. Sometimes it will be an attribute and an attribute. Sometimes it'll be an attribute and something else. But it is important to note that you take 2 things and you smash those pools together. So let's say you have 2 in an attribute and 3 in a skill. You add those together to make 5. You have 5 dice that you roll. You can then roll those against a difficulty that I declare, which I can either keep secret or I could tell to you before you roll, depending on the situation and what we want. You can take half of your dice pool as success, and for example, there can be automatic wins. Now, the way that it works is that when you roll the dice, a 1 through 5 is a failure, a 6 through 9 is a success, and a 10 is a success and a potential critical win. And the way that you get a critical success is to get a result of 10 on at least 2 dice. So if you get 1 10, it's not a critical success, but if you get 2 or more, it is. But one thing to remember is that in most circumstances, which is basically not like, so long as it's not pitched combat, you can take half of your dice pool rounded down as automatic successes.
Question: what kind of dice
Yes.
would we be rolling just to make sure that that's clear?
Yeah, these are D10s.
Okay, D10s.
I can also give you temporary bonuses or malices to your die pool instead of just adjusting the difficulty number. So, like, for example, if you do something that I think is cool or, like, you know, oh, hey, that's a really inventive way of doing things, I could just toss you a free dice if I want to.
Wow.
Or on a different thing, let's say that you have recently been drugged. I could tell you that, you know, you gotta take some dice away from your die pool because you're drugged. Or, you know, like, you just got out of a really tough fight, you're stumbling out, and you are, like, covered in wounds and blood, and you try and intimidate someone. Chances are you're going to get a circumstantial bonus to your dice pool.
Mm-hmm.
And if your dice pool is twice the task difficulty, I could just rule that you auto-win.
Say that again?
If your dice pool is twice the task difficulty that I set, I could just say, okay, you auto-win. No need to roll.
Ah, fair.
Just to note that this is not going to really apply in, like, you know, extremely stressful situations. Like combat.
Makes sense.
Or, you know, if you're currently fleeing for your life, you may not be able to automatically succeed at a check, at, like, you know, a dexterity check in order to get over. But, so does anyone have any questions about how the dice system works?
Negativo.
What was that?
That was me saying negative.
Oh, okay.
Negativo.
I'm good.
I am
All right.
fairly certain that is actually how you say it in Spanish.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, good.
You see, the funny part is I don't speak Spanish, so.
What's so funny about that? You gotta learn your languages.
Mein Deutsch ist nicht schlecht.
Ah, some German. Okay, you know what? Fair enough. Fair enough.
Ja, mein Deutsch ist nicht schlecht. It's a Solana. Okay, moving on.
Please do
Yeah.
not do that. I do not
I
allow
know, that's
any
why I said
foreign
moving on.
languages.
Now, so are we all ready to go ahead and start with your little introduction?
Be fun times, everyone.
Maybe yes.
Gather round, class. All right. So, all of you have been called in person, which means, yes, you do have to show up in person, to a government building for an orientation. And as you go inside, you are taken into a room, you know, just being led by security, that has a completely open, like, glass ceiling with the sunlight shining through into the room. It is a completely plain white room with a, you know, like a presentation board up at the beginning, and it's a long table with chairs already set up for you, and just a couple little, like, water bottles spread around. And you guys just wait around for a minute, just kind of just left there, when a man in a crisp suit opens up the door and walks in. Hello, everyone. I am Agent Smith, and I will be doing your orientation today. Now, it is important to note that all of you are at least aware that the supernatural exists, if not the exact details thereof. Hold on.
Is this our introductions or?
I think you got.
He had to step away.
Oh, okay.
I have a cat. Said cat is purring. She's nuzzling up to my hand. She is being adorable.
Oh,
Oh, shut.
Sorry about that. My family just came in and needed to talk to me for a second. Of course, it was in a bad time, but it happens. All right. So you guys are aware that the supernatural exists, if not the actual details. So we will be giving you a little bit of the details surrounding the supernatural, especially related to blank bodies. Now, blank bodies, and he's going to start walking up the table and go up to the presentation area and go ahead and click a few buttons as it starts to light up. Blank bodies is the term that we use, especially in UTR, unusual threat response, to denote creatures that would be colloquially referred to as vampires. It is important for operational security that outside of secure rooms like these, you do not use the colloquial term. Instead, use terms like blank bodies or leech or other such thing that it is not immediately clear to those not in the know what you're talking about. And he's going to look at each of you in the eyes. Not that you can really tell because he has on sunglasses, but he stares at each of you. Is this understood?
Is my character himself actually here?
Yes, you have to physically be
Yes, you had to be.
Everyone is
You can still
physically
have on all
present.
your shit.
Okay.
You can still have on all your shit that you wanted to. It's just, you have to be there. And I just want to make it completely clear that this is not just a matter of operational security. This is a matter of life and death. Do you understand me?
Understood.
Understood.
Yes, sir. Perfectly clear.
understood.
Wonderful. Now, I'm not going to get into the exact details, but there have been reports, unconfirmed, that there are agents that work with the blank bodies that have infiltrated governmental areas. This is completely unconfirmed, but it is important to note that it is a possibility. Thus, when you are outside of this room or another room like it, you will not use full terms. Now, as I have been made aware, not all of you have had an encounter or any sort of familiarity with a blank body. And as the most prolific of the threats that we face in the Special Affairs Division, you are going to be introduced to a blank body. Please follow me. And he's going to click another button, and a few stairs actually start to appear in the corner of the room that lead down. And he's going to start walking down. And before he realizes that one of you's in a wheelchair,
I was just about to
then
be
clicks
like,
another button.
Yes, we are
and
wheelchair accessible here.
elevator doors slowly start to appear on the wall. And he's going to go, apologies, we are not used to having to use that. Please make your way down at your own convenience.
What convenience and consideration, as expected of the government. Yeah, feel free to ask my character to speak in a limited capacity.
And my guy will just give you the
yes.
side eye. Like, is he for real?
Meanwhile, my character is just taking out a lighter, flicking it open, flicking it on, flipping it shut. He does that as like a little tick.
Corinne will just quietly follow behind.
Should we give character descriptions, by the way? Or should we hold off on that in case in the future that becomes more relevant?
If you guys want to, right now would be a good time to go and do like self-character descriptions, but I know that not all of you had already finalized, so I wasn't going to ask for it.
I guess
plus
the
we'll
question would
have
be,
to
does
do
it-
it again anyways once we start the actual campaign.
Okay, fair enough.
Yes.
Fair.
So, are you guys going to go and meet him into the lower area?
Yes. My character goes down the stairs.
All right.
Follows after.
My guy will check his exits to make sure he knows how to leave and then also follow.
The only exit that you see is the one you came in through.
Mm-hmm.
So, as you guys go down, you will note that unlike the room that you were just in, which was completely filled with only sunlight, there were no actual lights inside the room. This is all artificial, and there is absolutely no sunlight inside of this room at all. There are no windows, and there is no way, except through the, the attached stairs and the elevator. And as you guys go downstairs, you see your, orientator of Agent Smith standing right next to another person as they both look at someone that looks like a completely normal person strapped to a chair. He's also behind multiple bars that are very, very thick and have very little room between them. I'm glad that all of you could join us. So, this is a blank body. It may look like a completely normal person to all of you. However, I can assure you that this leech right here is in fact already dead. Now, there are a few different ways that we are able to detect this. First off is with a device that we call an X-scope. And he's going to walk over to a table and pull out something that looks vaguely similar to a scanner, but it has a screen that you're able to read out and something to train it on a target. And he's going to walk in front of all of you and individually show you how to use it. And as you look through it, you can clearly see that unlike everyone else that you pointed at, the person in the chair is in fact, it gives off no actual reading.
Egad.
This is why we call them blank bodies. Now, there are certain techniques that we use in order to capture a blank body. Number one, this is a wooden stake, and he's going to pull a wooden stake off of the table. If you stab one of these through a blank body's heart, they will not die. Do not believe that Hollywood garbage. Instead, they are paralyzed. This means so long as you have a stake in one of the blank body's hearts, they cannot move. They are completely paralyzed. You are not going to be able to be harmed by them. This
Character
does
raises
not
his
kill
hand.
them. Yes.
You said one of his hearts.
Now, there are different types of vampires, and they each can have some very strange abilities, and I'm not going to make completely generalized statements about all of them. Most of them will be like the one you see before you, which by any normal reasoning, it looks completely like a normal person without the use of external devices or checking of the inside of the mouth. However, there are other ones which would best be referred to as mutant blank bodies. Now, are there any other questions relating to the fact that stakes do not kill them?
Character raises his hand again.
Yes.
Does this type of wood matter?
Surprisingly, no. It just needs to be a wooden stake.
He nods once.
Of course, we would recommend that you use harder woods because it can pierce better. But the actual persuasion of the wood does not actually matter, so long as it is a wooden stake.
Does the organization care about capture versus kill? Is there a preferred?
We will always prefer capturing of a blank body due to the fact that they may have pertinent information about other blank bodies in the area. However, we will almost never be upset if instead they are killed.
Prioritize capture when viable. Understood.
Absolutely. Now, just to go over a couple more of the weaknesses of the blank bodies, fire is very effective against blank bodies, as is direct sunlight. This is one reason that the upstairs meeting room is built the way that it is. When we have meetings, it will be during bright daytime in a room which is filled entirely with the sun's light. That is a very easy way to making sure that effectively every single vampire cannot be in the room, because they will die.
Altemis will speak up and be like, have you identified which component of sunlight is directly responsible for its lethality to the blank bodies?
We have not, but we have found out that they mostly respond to any source of intense enough heat in a very similar way.
Nobody ever
That
believes
is
me when
there-
I try to tell them.
What'd you say?
I said, no one ever tries to believe me when I try to tell them.
Now, there are a couple of standardized capture procedures that we go through when dealing with one of the blank bodies. Number one, and he's going to pull out a. There's like a little like iron rod sitting next to the cage that the blank body is in, and he is going to stick the rod through the cage and lift up its lip a bit. And you can see that where, like, normally people's like canine teeth would be, They have instead been ripped out, and instead there are metal caps that look like they've been melted onto the gums. This is a very standardized and effective way of taking the blank bodies captive. If they cannot bite you effectively, they cannot get the blood that is the source of their powers. Any UTR team sent out to deal with blank bodies will be equipped with dental pliers. It is recommended that when you take one captive, that you go ahead and defang them like this. The reason for the metal is that it hampers their ability to regrow the teeth. Are there any questions on that front?
Very useful information.
Thank you. This is why we are doing this briefing.
Are there
And again,
any
this is
standardized caps, or are we expected to figure some way to carry molten metal upon our person?
There are, or are we given the tools that one might use to make their own bullets, which would allow us to, in the field, apply molten metal to them?
doing this in the field is not something that is generally done. Once they have been moved into a, specifically there are vans that we will generally use, armored vans, that will come equipped with coffins in the back that you can place the blank bodies in, preferably after already staking them and defanging them, and those vans will have the materials in order to put the caps on.
So it's very unlikely that we'll be performing the procedure ourselves, then.
It is, in fact, very unlikely, but I will not rule it out, which is why I'm explaining it to you. I assure you it is not very complicated. Now, there are other important aspects to determining where a unnatural threat is. One of these is called a chaoscope, and he's going to go over to a large piece of machinery that is sitting in the corner. This is a chaoscope, and these are van mounted. They will be used very commonly to how to best put this? It's very similar to radio. So many supernatural beings have a frequency that they are on. And if you can find that frequency using the chaoscope, then you can track a supernatural entity over a fairly long distance. This is more useful when we are doing field work rather than just doing things in the city. If you are sent away to a different area, such as, let's say that you were sent over to Philadelphia, you would go with a chaoscope in order to help you identify an area and see if there are supernatural threats in your vicinity.
Hand raise.
It is not. It is, yes.
Is it 100% accurate?
It is very accurate. I will not say 100% because it relies on the user operator to correctly utilize the equipment. And also, it is not the most easy to use piece of equipment. However, if you do in fact get a true hit, it is entirely accurate. The electromagnetic frequencies that are caused by things like unnatural threats are similar but distinct. So, do any of you have any questions on... Okay, go ahead.
Is this equipment capable of giving us, like, oh, I don't know, a general warning if something supernatural is approaching the chaos scope? Even if I understand that the tracking aspect of it would require a more specific tuning, but
Utilizing the chaoscope with the electromagnetic frequencies to detect a supernatural entity that is the main difficulty right there. Once you have located an unusual threat using a chaoscope, it is exceedingly easy to maintain that. It is finding it in the first place that is the difficult part.
So it's basically like find the needle in the haystack, then.
It is, but it is better than not having it. After all, would you prefer to have the chaoscope and it be difficult to use, or would you prefer to not have it at all?
I feel like that's a rhetorical question and needed.
It's because it is.
Needed,
Good job.
and it needed to be asked in the first place.
But, so, this is the mainly used equipment that we use in order to stop the blank bodies. It is important to note that blank bodies are only one version of unusual threats that you will be dealing with. However, they are the most prolific, and they tend to infest any populated area. So it is felt that this is the most prudent supernatural entity to familiarize yourself with when joining a UTR to begin with. Now, I do have a UTR designation for you. I recommend that you familiarize yourself with the number. However, you can also come up with a code name and feed that over to your team leader, and he's going to gesture to the man that is standing next to him.
He gives a little wave.
Because your team leader can set a designation for your UTR group. Now, you are UTR, and he's going to flip a paper. Here it is. You are UTR 527. So if you see anything referring to UTR 527, that will be your designation. And he's going to hand that clipboard over to, your team leader over there. And he's going to look around at all of you. Now, are there any questions relating to how to counteract a blank body?
My guy's going to raise a hand at the back.
All right.
Are there any specific ways to ward them off? Conditions they don't like, certain materials.
There has been no proven correlation, although they tend to not deal too well with those of true faith. There is no mundane material that we have discovered that will entirely ward off vampires from the area. And I do want to bring one specific thing to to everyone's attention. Please note that when describing ways to deal with a blank body, I did not say that you can just shoot them and be done with it. Shooting a blank body would be the equivalent of you getting a bruise. It doesn't matter if there is a gaping hole in their chest, they will be fine. You need to use fire, sunlight, or some other similar substance in order to kill them.
I can do
Uh,
that.
At that, the other person's going to reach down. There is a actual, honest to God, longsword hooked to his hip, and he just kind of pats it.
Flicks
Please
open
note that you
lighter.
are not. Please note that you are not to emulate your team leader in this. He has a special artifact that allows him to stab a vampire, and it die. Do not attempt to stab a vampire with a normal weapon.
Flicks lighter on. Closes lighter.
Fire works well against them. Yeah, as he was saying, do you mind if I give a little thing to them as well?
No, go ahead. You should introduce yourself as their team leader.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Ashton. Nice to meet you. I'm going to be your team leader from today onwards, and it is my goal to ensure that each and every one of you survive. I'm going to be mostly hands-off sort of approach. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me. I am here to help you. But otherwise, I am here to train you and to teach you to survive on your own together. So that when eventually you guys do go off on your own, either with other squads or to lead your own groups, you guys will know what to do. But otherwise, if anything happens, I will step up and I will do my very hardest to make sure that you all survive. Also, it's very nice to meet all of you.
Raise his hand.
Yes?
Have you ever done this before?
I have been doing this for a very, very, very long time. I am probably the most proficient person on staff, I would say, as he glances over at the other guy.
I would say, at the very least, most experienced.
Fair. I didn't want to assume.
I think that you are one of the people that can assume very well.
I have probably killed at least a couple of thousand, give or take. I lose track.
Altemis will raise an eyebrow at that. Then are you even human?
Yes, I am human.
On technicality or in actuality?
He glances over at the other guy.
This could be a good introduction to the more mortal servants of the blank bodies.
I am the husband of a vampire. We met about 1,000 years ago, give or take. I was a vampire hunter for the church, and one thing led to another. We tried to kill each other repeatedly. He ended up falling in love with me. I tried to kill him, and he got so enthralled with me, he ended up keeping me alive when I almost died once. It's complicated.
Ashton, I meant the means, not your personal history with that vampire.
The priest blinks. Oh. That is very interesting.
Character raises his hand.
Yes?
Do we have any other team leaders to choose from?
To go with what he was saying, my apologies. I survive on vampire blood. It keeps me young, but it otherwise has no other delirious effects on me due to my faith.
I raise my hand as well.
Which faith is it? If you do not mind me asking?
Dumb shit.
I tend to try not to be very particular due to the other groups that we work with, but I tend to fall under the Abrahamic religion. That was what was around during my time period.
See.
But yes, you had a question?
I assume you're pointing to Zim's character?
Yes.
I'm kind of with him. Are there others that are possibly not compromised that we might pick from?
I'm not compromised. In fact, pretty much every BB wants me dead.
You married a
I'm
vampire.
inclined to believe this man.
What'd you say, Anja?
I am inclined to believe in our leader. That was a charming and romantic story, of which I am fond.
He married a vampire.
Yeah. I
Just
mean,
to reiterate why he was chosen in the first place, he will in fact keep all of you alive. If you want to go under a different team leader, I can say that your life expectancy will shorten to funeral benefits package within the month.
I'm good at what I do, and that's keeping people alive. I've been doing it for a while. I'm not perfect. I've lost people. I've lost a lot of people. But I've also saved a lot more than that. And I want to teach you all what you need to know so that you can all survive. Because he points a finger at that vampire. He makes it sound easy capturing one of these things. For most people, if you try to take a vampire alive or even get close to it, it can literally rip you up in 2 pieces within 3 seconds. The older a vampire is, the scarier it is, and you have no way of knowing how old a vampire is unless you know exactly who it is. And even then, you might have bad information. I've seen a lot of hunters die because of that.
Character raises his hand.
Yes?
I'd like to opt out of becoming a vampire.
You won't become a vampire?
Good.
No.
Please
I
note
just-
that
Good.
Please note that your team leader is technically something known as an independent ghoul. He is not a vampire. Ghouls are still technically human.
Isn't a ghoul a vampire servant?
Independent. I'm not controlled.
Independent is the key word. Please note that this does mean that there are dependent ghouls that very much will in fact serve the blank bodies that you will be hunting, and will in fact try to kill you.
Yes.
Noted.
I'm considered to be like a kill on sight by other vampires because of how dangerous I can be.
Quick question
Please
for
note that-
everyone.
In
Do
character,
you-
out of character.
Out of character.
Hmm.
Do you all have names for your characters?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I do.
Aha, I remembered.
Moriarty? Raharu?
Right.
I don't actually.
Yeah.
I
I've got-
don't actually. Right now I'm just calling him the priest.
Okay.
My character has a name and backstory.
Well, then I'll have to hold off on the rest of what I was going to ask for until Raharu has one.
I'll let you know the moment he has one. Okay, getting back into it. As a side note, there is a term for dependent ghouls that we will use in the field because you cannot, again, use actual names. Very commonly, they will be referred to as either a Bella. I'm sure that you can guess why. Or they can be referred to as a Renfield. If you hear either of those terms, that means that it is a human that is suspected or confirmed to be working for blank bodies.
And just because they are still mostly human doesn't mean they might not be tougher or stronger or faster than a normal person. They can get some they can get better because they feed on vampire blood, especially if they've just had it.
Noted.
But is there anything else you wanted to go over with them too?
I think that we will end up pulling you all back in here in the future to go over additional supernatural threats, but for now, blank bodies are the most prolific and the ones that you actually need to know about.
These things are not to be trifled with. Like, I cannot overstate that if you are in the same room as a vampire, do not let it know that you know what it is. It can and it will kill you faster than you can blink if you're not ready for it. But that's why we work together. That's why there's more than one of us here, so we can help and support each other. And we can make sure that nobody dies, except what needs to die.
Yes. Speaking of the actual cleaning up process, he's going to go over to the wall and flick a switch. And as he flicks that switch, the ceiling, which was previously the floor, is going to slowly start to slide away and let the sunlight start to filter in to the cell that the vampire is currently locked into. And as it opens, the sunlight slowly starts to touch the vampire's skin as it turns into a burning, fiery red, rapidly turning to ash. And as it opens all the way, what used to be a humanoid creature is now nothing more than a pile of dust on the chair.
My God.
And Altemis will be like, and you haven't devised any mechanical means to maybe not to have a watered down effect of a similar.
Among the supernatural circles, they say that the reason this happens is spirits of the sun actually despise vampires and will kill them on sight. The issue is they cannot travel anywhere the sun isn't at. So, no sunlight, no angry spirit to rip their face off. Or so the story goes.
To get back into the more technical side of things, we have technology that can create a similar effect. It is just not nearly as rapid or all-consuming.
Yes, but would it be effective enough to, say, deter a vampire for at least a short amount of time?
Oh, absolutely. We utilize that technology to keep a blank body pinned in their lair so they can't escape.
Sunlight and fire are the two best ways. If they see open flames, like a lot of it, it will usually cause a huge panic reaction for them.
These devices that simulate sunlight, how large are they?
They are best used as van-mounted perimeter. Also, it does not emulate sunlight. It utilizes heat, which is something that blank bodies are weak to. Think of it as a condensed heat ray.
Good to know.
Well, everything that we're talking about here right now is a good to know. Now, not every unnatural threat can be disposed of in such a clean manner. There will be unnatural threats that will assume the form of a human upon death. Now, the sharp and astute among you may realize that it means that you may be found by people in an area with what appears to be a dead human body. It is a very real and very common result that field agents, such as yourself, will get arrested at some point. Now, we will monitor for that to happen, and we will take care of it if that happens. However, until then, it is recommended that all of you refuse to answer any questions or do anything until our aid reaches you. Please note, it is an unconfirmed rumor that blank bodies or their Bellas and Renfields have infiltrated governmental operations. However, as it is a risk, do not say anything that could possibly give you away.
I'd recommend basically assume every sort of cop or political figure is either with a vampire or unknowingly being controlled by a vampire. That's been my experience.
Again, this is unconfirmed reports.
Just giving them a heads up.
Very well. In that case, I think that that covers all of the basics to do with blank bodies. Any other additional information can either be learned through experience or via your team lead here. Do you have anything to add on the dealing with blank bodies right now, team lead?
Not all vampires are necessarily monsters. Most of them don't care about people. Most of them don't care about hurting people. But they're also not necessarily going to be, I just like enjoying murdering people for no reason. They prefer to stay quiet and avoid drawing attention to themselves. So they will usually try not to kill people if they can avoid it most of the time. But again, it's a case-by-case basis almost. Every vampire is going to be an individual. So it's sort of, you might get lucky and meet a vampire that's not actually out to really hurt anyone. It's rare, but I've encountered them a few times. So don't let what we're necessarily telling you color every single one of them as an irredeemable monster. Some of them were forced into it. Some of them didn't have a choice about becoming a vampire. They're just trying to survive. Those ones we can help a little bit to not have to hurt people in order to stay alive.
Please note that this does not mean you are to let them go free. They are still to be brought in.
Usually it's also for their own protection too. A lot of vampires don't like those types.
The priest nods. Sounds reasonable to me.
I'm assuming when we bring these ones in as a safety precaution, we're still to remove their teeth.
We don't need to do that.
That is on an individual case-by-case basis. No matter what, though, you are still to stake them in the heart, as this does not actually hurt them. Reminder, staking a vampire in the heart does not kill it.
No, it just puts it to sleep for a while.
I have seen many agents die due to forgetting that. Please do not forget that staking a vampire does not kill it.
Is there any questions from any of you?
Well, quite frankly, a whole myriad of them. But I feel like I had best get them down on paper so that I can figure out which ones are in fact redundant.
Character raises hand.
Yes.
Is this entire meeting only about vampires?
Do you want me to go into other creatures?
I very much am interested in killing werewolves.
He's gonna look over at his current boss.
Yes. So, like I said, there are many different types of supernatural threat out there. Some of them are even prolific in pop culture. This does not mean that every single pop culture weakness that is depicted for these are correct. However, I will say that much like vampires in their weakness to sunlight, werewolves in their weakness to silver is well documented and correct. I do not wish for us to get into the details about other supernatural entities at this moment. However, if you wish to inquire to your team lead, that is more than acceptable.
I can tell you stuff if you would like to know it. I don't mind later.
I'd prefer a fully written guide if you don't mind.
I can see about maybe getting something together for you. Yes, I don't mind. I just need to know what you might want to know, and I can try to make sure you know it.
Ashton, before you ask, it is absolutely not going to happen that we will be able to capture a live demonstration like we did with the blank bodies. If you want one, go get it yourself.
I don't know any of the werewolves who live around here, so I couldn't ask for. Well, that probably wouldn't work. Well, they probably wouldn't like that. Anyway, yeah, don't worry about it. I can give you a rundown on at least some of the werewolves and the groups and stuff, and like kind of what they think. And I've dealt with them a few times. They're actually decent folk most of the time. There are some really nasty ones.
Decent folk.
Yeah, there's a lot of somewhat decent werewolves.
Are those the ones that were turned against their will as well? I imagine.
No, werewolves are born; they're not created.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, no, they can't bite you and turn you into a werewolf. That doesn't work.
Raise his hand.
Yes.
Why do you sympathize with so many supernatural entities?
Because they're people. And it's my job.
Mm-hmm.
He just kind of rests a hand on his sword. It's literally my job to help people, including the so-called monsters, to try to help them find their way back. If they don't, though, then it is also my job to make sure they don't hurt anyone. And his hand just kind of tightens on his sword. Basically, it's like, yes, I want to try to help these people, but if they just throw it right back in my face, I will kill them in order to protect humanity.
Altemis will be like, well, considering that most of these supernaturals seem to their powers seem to come with a rather deleterious effect on the mind, it seems like the best way to help them would be to be curing them of their afflictions.
It depends on the person. Like
Curing
you can't
life.
You can't really cure a wraith. Like they're just basically a ghost. You can help them move on, but that's pretty much it with them. But yeah, no, I'm actually he actually looks at the alchemist. I'm actually trying to research ways to actually cure vampirism.
Alchemist. Is that what he's calling Alchemist?
All right, I misheard.
It's
No, he.
Altemis,
Oh,
not
it sounded like
alchemist. It's
It sounded like alchemist. On
Yeah,
my
no, his
headset.
name is Corinne Altemis.
All right, alchemist.
Yeah, it's like oh my god, I can't Artemis, but with an L.
Oh, okay. No, I'm actually trying to research how to cure vampires, and it's been very long and not very fruitful. But I haven't given up yet.
You
Have you used medical science before?
haven't had any progress even after all these years?
I mean, I've run things past my husband, and he's been really good about like my experiments and stuff. But I don't want to do anything that could be lethal, you know.
Well, considering from what you've told me, you could probably do a lot of medical experiments to a vampire without causing them much harm at all.
It still hurts, as he's told me.
Yes. But science does hurt sometimes.
We don't torture people.
I'm all for torture.
Altemis will just be like, what do you think a medical trial basically is? It's pumping people full of drugs. We don't know what it's going to do to them. I think that could be considered a kind of torture.
Now hold on. There is a difference due to the intent.
Yes, and if my intent is to cure him, and a live autopsy happens to help me find that out, then I feel like the intent is very clearly good.
I mean, that's a vivisection at that point. You don't do that to people.
Unless perhaps they are guilty of many crimes, in which case, then there is potentially negotiation for contributing them to science.
At that point, he kind of pauses. At that point, it's probably just going to be safer just to kill them. Believe me, you do not want a vampire waking up halfway through cutting them open and then deciding they're going to redecorate the room with your innards.
I mean, I can't imagine we would remove the steak, though.
Don't always count on the steak always working 100% of the time.
Please note, I avoided saying. I did avoid, and I also specifically mentioned that not all vampires are entirely weak to the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You must do your research on the specific kind that you are dealing with to ensure that whatever you're doing to it will in fact work.
One of the first lessons I want to teach you all. Assumptions will get you killed. Even if you've done something 1,000 times, all it takes is one mistake and it could get you or a hell of a lot of innocent people killed. Never assume, no matter what it could be, no matter how much experience you have. Like, this is coming from me as well. I've had to learn this lesson the hard way.
At that point, it seems that it is better to just kill them and be done with it. But at that point, I don't think you will ever have any fruit with your research. Sad to say.
What I would describe is treat every situation as basically the first of its kind. Always go in with no blinders. Go in with no pre-made assumptions. Always go in with your eyes open. and only go by what the facts tell you.
You basically had to be prepared for everything at every time. But
You can... Go ahead.
Minimum of 3 contingency plans. I understand.
I would recommend 10.
Gracious me. I'll do what I can.
I was simply saying that sounds very demanding, but I suppose that it's just part of the job.
You use your experience to help to build how you will react to a situation. Use your experience to know how to handle a situation. But always go into a situation, imagine what the worst case scenario could be, and imagine as many possibilities of how something could go. That way, when something inevitably does go wrong, because it will, you will at least hopefully be able to survive it. And that will come with experience, though. As you see more, as you experience more, you will have a better breadth of knowledge, and you will be able to guess what they may do before they are able to do it. And then you can stop it.
Noted.
Do vampires primarily aim for the neck?
It depends. The type of breed, how hungry they are. They don't need... They can just drink from like a blood bag. That's what my husband uses. They don't need actual, like, from the neck blood. It's just easier to do it that way, and it's nicer for the person being fed on. Usually they won't try to hurt the person. Normally when they feed, they're not going to be trying to kill them, because then you have a body to clean up. And if you keep the person alive, they might come back again and again and again.
See.
Fair
Walking
enough.
food source.
Intriguing.
And vampires themselves die from blood loss.
From what I have been told and what I know, once they run out of blood, they either go mad with frenzy and will start killing everything so they can feed, or they're just going to shrivel up until they can get blood.
Please note, I did not say that a lack of blood would kill the vampire. I said it is the source of their powers.
If you can take away their blood, you can basically cut them off from their power, but that's going to take time. And it's going to be like, you saw what this room is. That's not going to hold someone like my husband. He would point and laugh at that.
Well, in some lore, vampires have incredible regeneration ability, so I was wondering of the viability of removing the limbs.
He kind of puts a hand on his sword. It's what I would recommend, cutting off the head. Swords work better than guns do, because you can hack off an entire limb. They can heal that, though, if they can put it back to the stump and have enough blood. They can regenerate that, dependingly. But taking the head off will usually kill them. Depends on the kind, though.
So there are vampires that can survive being beheaded.
There's one kind that they can manipulate flesh like we manipulate clay. Never assume they have just one head.
That is horrifying.
Yes, they are. I've seen them turn an entire village of people back in the 13th century into a cathedral of living flesh.
The priest blinks. That is
Nightmarish, and yet quite imaginative.
That is blasphemous.
I would say
they have a cruel sense of irony.
I would say for those types of vampires, kill them on sight. Burn the building, blow it up, do whatever it takes to kill them. Those ones are almost always deserving of that. They are very difficult to kill otherwise, though.
Have you ever found one that was?
one or two, but it's rare with them.
It
No,
seems like it's rare with all of the supernatural.
most of the werewolves are not too bad. They're kind of dickish, dependingly, but they're not like terrible. I'm going to kill you. Most of the time, depends. Just don't intrude on their territory.
Yes. I can already sense the confidence in your words.
Again, case by case basis. You just don't make any assumptions when walking into a new situation. That's one of the reasons I'm still alive. I don't want to
Oh,
assume.
I meant you vying for their redeemability.
I mean, I'm going to be a realist here. I've been doing this for so long. Like, most of the time they refuse. Most of the time they say no. And I have to do what needs to be done. But there are times where I'm able to help them. So, yeah, there is. It gives me hope. But
I, for one, have found this all very encouraging. Do we have some sort of grand archive that I could peruse and or make additions to as the information comes into our hands?
I might be able to ask my husband about letting you see one of his libraries.
Sparkle.
This is out of character, but I just want to imagine Dusty's character, because he's kind of, in Dusty's own words, lame, just be actually having just said that, just be like, Sparkle. Like someone just kind of be like, smiley face.
Smiley face.
Colon right parenthesis.
I mean,
I'm verbally emoting.
I did say it, so.
I will say he waves to Moriarty's character because I don't actually know his name or anything. I will say this because he did kind of bring it up. Vampires can kill you in about 3 seconds in melee combat. A werewolf, or as I prefer to sometimes call them affectionately, 9-foot tall snarling death beast. If you get into melee combat with one, or if you're even in the same room as one, prepare to be over there, and up there, in many little bloody pieces. Vampires are bad. Werewolves are about 1,000,000 times worse.
Are werewolves actually allergic or weak to silver?
There are different kinds of were creatures. There's more than just like a werewolf. But for the specific werewolf, silver will work on them. It stops their regeneration and their healing.
I did mention this earlier, likening it to the same fact that the pop culture weakness of the vampire for sunlight is correct in the same way that werewolves are weak to silver.
There are certain were creatures that are more vulnerable to gold. But werewolves, 100%, you can count on silver being effective against them. Silver blades, silver swords, silver bullets. As long as it is made of silver, it will hurt them.
Excellent, so I'll just make all of my toys out of silver. Got it.
Explosives don't necessarily work as well. They can still heal that, but fire is usually decent at slowing them down or even putting them down if you can keep them in it long enough. They still need to breathe.
I mean, if the sharpener is made of silver, wouldn't that also stop their regeneration?
Yes, actually, that would. That's a
Silver
decent
shrapnel
idea.
should work.
That's a decent idea. I've never actually. I'm not really an explosives guy. He pats the sword at his hip. I'm sort of a one-trick pony, but I'm really good at that one trick. So I've never really explored other avenues due to my job.
Considering that you have a sword and you said fighting a werewolf in melee is death, I'm rather curious if you've only killed them with that sword being as a first the first one to act.
Shin smiles. No, I've dueled my fair number of werewolves.
Hmm.
Are you actually capable of coming up with them?
Yes.
I guess
It's
you are a ghoul.
it's not easy, but again, I've been doing this for so long that I probably have forgotten more about swordplay than most people learn in their entire lives. When you have more than your average human lifespan to study something, you tend to get good at it.
And this is just your reminder that no matter how unfailable you think your team leader is, Ashton here can in fact still be shot with a gun.
Yes. Yes, I can.
He is not supernatural.
Gun to the head will kill me just like anyone else.
He is just very seasoned.
You don't walk into a fight unless usually you know how you're going to win it already. And you have 10 or 15 backup plans for when inevitably the first 6 explode in your face.
Well then, I will do everything I can to survive for at least 5 more years.
What I plan to do with this team, what I want to do, is I'm going to step back. I'm going to let you guys plan the operations. I'm going to let you guys do your research. I'm going to let you guys basically handle everything. If you have a question, ask me. If you want to know about something, ask me. If there's something that you didn't think about that will kill someone, I will mention it. But otherwise, I will not necessarily help you unless you specifically ask me for it. I am here to help you. I am here to help you grow and learn, but I also want to make sure that you guys don't become dependent on some of the things that I know or can do.
Oh.
Understood.
I want you guys to become experts. I want you guys to be able to do what I'm doing for other people. Because I think you guys all have the potential for that. I think you all can do a lot of good and you can save a lot of lives. And it's not just about the fighting or the killing. Knowledge is literally your lifeblood in this business. The more you know, the better off you are. Information will save your life far better than any magic sword or explosive or anything like that. Knowing where your enemy is, knowing what can hurt them, knowing their history. Literally, there is no information that will usually be worthless when it comes to a hunt.
Now, is there anything else that you wanted to discuss before we vacate the meeting room?
Does this center itself have an archive of which I could add information, or do hunters have their own database that we construct from the beginning?
Mostly it is a self-contained database, but there is other databanks that you can utilize in order to check to see if what you are finding is matching up to one specific thing or another. but due to operational security concerns, we generally do not allow any sort of remote access to any archive.
Then could I make regular trips back here once I have gathered what I believe to be sufficient data to add to your servers? For future references, of course.
So
This will
long as it is
probably be
only
primarily of donation.
so long as it is only adding. Unfortunately, we cannot allow unsupervised information to be leaving our offices.
This is acceptable.
There was one question I have. I never found out about this when I was coming. Are we going to actually have a base of operations that we're going to be able to work out of, or is that something that I should try to take care of for us? How did you want us to handle that?
As far as I was aware, one of you already had an area that you were going to proffer up. Is that correct?
Aye, that's right.
All right.
little safe area.
There's your man.
Okay. Nope. I just wanted to double check for the team just to make sure. If you have a safe house or a safe place, by all means, I am very happy to hear that. But there is one thing I do want to insist on for everybody. Is once we're done here, once everything is finished up and we're good to go, I would like to invite everyone here out to a restaurant, and so we can eat together and talk.
That sounds delightful. However, I should probably put on a hat and or glasses. I would not wish to affect your reputations.
I'll rent out the entire restaurant if we need it.
The priest gives a nod. I do believe I do want to accept you. I do want to accept your kind of. I'd be delighted.
I accept on the condition that this isn't that you aren't taking us to some minor den of bullshittery.
Take us to a good place. I haven't been to DC for like 60 years, so I'm not sure what the restaurants are. So I'd have to kind of
like, we're not gonna go there and like it turns out that there's like something happening there is basically what he was saying.
no. This is entirely team building and team bonding. One of the most important things for a team like this is for all of you to see each other as family. Having those bonds, having those connections to each other. Like right now, I know all of us are strangers to each other. We don't know anyone. We don't know where you guys came from, what your story is. We don't know what you've experienced or what you're like. But when push comes to shove, the only people that you can expect to have your back is right here. So I want everyone here to be able to trust each other, to be able to be open with each other. And if there is a problem at all, doesn't matter how small or how little, I want you to come to me with it, because that type of shit can get people killed. A small act of hesitation, a single little bit that you might not think might be important could kill somebody. So I know we're human. We might piss each other off at times. That's normal, but I do want us to really get along and to really see each other as a family once we have some time together and we've been able to work together.
It's been a very long time since I spoke with my family. I would appreciate another one. Wait, no. That is not quite how I meant the words.
That is very concerning.
Sounds like a fine objective.
We're all in a line of work that could literally get us killed tomorrow. So, might as well just try to enjoy the time we have with the people we have.
Just as a reminder, while you are eating in public, remember, do not use any actual names or descriptions. If you feel that you
Creatures.
cannot do this, simply do not talk about the topics.
Do we have a code name for werewolves?
Inside the Special Affairs Division, right now, currently not. Given that they tend to avoid most civilization besides outskirts areas or areas in development, they are a lesser threat compared to the blank bodies.
I always like to jokingly call them the Awoos.
Whatever you want to internally refer to them as is fine, so long as you do not use any actual names.
But all of these creatures are part of, pop culture, like you've said multiple times. Why does it make any difference what we call them? Somebody asked us why the hell we're talking about werewolves and vampires. We could always just be like, oh, we're just discussing our next tabletop game or something.
Maybe it could be about the people that are in control or the people that are disguised.
It's more what you're saying is an excuse you could use 100%. The issue that you have to watch out for and you have to be careful about is someone could notice, and someone who is aware, even if they think that you were just joking or like you're just talking about a game or something, that could peg them to keep an eye on you, though. That's where you have to be careful about it. You never know.
There have been reports of at least just slight mentions of this resulting in visits later down the line. We think that it is prudent to avoid mentioning it at all, rather than take a senseless risk.
By the way, I'm adding the woos to the lexicon list.
The werewolves are now the Awoos.
Or just call them danger puppies.
Also a decent name. I would approve that as the team leader. The danger puppies. I will also say the were snakes are danger noodles. I've always wanted to use that term, and now I actually have a reason to.
It kind of reminds me of that one Yu-Gi-Oh card called Danger Tsuchidoko.
But no, once we're in a safe place,
Altemis will ask, but won't using some strange word that most people don't understand draw potentially as much attention as using the word vampire instead of blank body?
It is not a question of whether they know that you know. It's whether they think that you know and are going to be spreading information about it. After all, if you know and you are not using actual terms, they don't know if you are working for one side or the other.
For all they know, we could be working with a rival vampire.
Just remember that, much like the mortals, the supernatural have a lot of politics. So long as you can keep just on the right side of that, then it doesn't really matter.
I feel like you're really understating that.
That's possible, but
I feel like you're
they get the
intentionally
gist.
leaving a. I feel like you're intentionally leaving a lot of information out.
That's because I am. Again, right now we are only talking about the blank bodies. And this is only how to take down a blank body or identify a blank body. This is not going into the intricacies of the blank body politics that we've been able to figure out based on the local movings and happenings. Those are things that you don't have to worry about. Those will not matter to you. You will be sent out to identify, tag, and bag, and other such things like that.
Noted.
You don't need to know what specific political persuasion they happen to be a part of. All that needs to matter to you is that they are a blank body. Or whatever other supernatural thing we send you after, whatever other unnatural threat, that you identify it, you devise a way to take it down, and then you do so.
Altemis will laugh and be like, it is kind of ironic considering that you said information is probably the most important thing.
It depends. It depends on what information might be relevant. But there's so much information that we could literally be here talking for about 20 years if we want to get into that kind of stuff.
If our job is to contain a blank body, then I guess the politics don't really matter to us.
If only I could live for so long. But I am but a human.
Now, this is one of the reasons why you having Ashton here as your team leader dramatically increases your survivability. After all, he'll know what you're dealing with. You can ask him questions.
I'm here to answer anything you can think of. And I'm ready and willing to contribute my knowledge as you guys are building your plans and strategy. I think we should be able to, from the information that I read about all of you, I think we have a pretty good team, though. I think we definitely have all of our fields covered, all of our areas taken care of. And I think with enough time, effort, work, I think we have a really good, solid team that can pretty much handle almost any situation.
Deafening silence.
But again, that's something that's going to come with time, work, and a whole hell of a lot of effort, and probably a little bit of luck.
I'm willing to put in the work as long as I'm able.
That does lead me to a question: how much of you have a personal life outside of the supernatural?
I do have a full-time job at the library.
Okay.
Outside of the supernatural, I am a priest at a church.
Okay.
However, I have a veritable stockpile of vacation days that I have not spent, and I will lose them come the next term.
I'm just asking to know, like, how much time you guys would be able to spend with the team versus having to take care of your own lives and such.
Well, not much in the way of employment here anymore, so I'll be able to devote a fair amount of time.
I work for the company now.
Looks pointedly at Foxbard's character.
Well, let's see. On Mondays and Thursdays, I have raid sessions in in World of Barotrauma. On Sundays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, I have various tabletop games I do over at my local hobby shop. So I think I'm available on Tuesdays.
Fair.
What is this?
It'll just be like, it'll just look at whoever said fair, and just be like, the fuck you talking about?
This is me trying to be diplomatic.
Like, yes, I'm sure we're going to be very effective working 1 day a week.
Again, you don't necessarily come out and say that directly. There is steps that you can take to help mitigate and inform someone that there are changes that may need to be made.
I find the direct approach tends to be very effective in such manners. Like ripping off a band-aid or duct tape.
Yeah, but you don't want to piss off the person who could probably hack into all of your finance, take all of your money, and then leave you completely destitute and open up like 10 credit cards in their name.
Oh, I could also make it so that you are number 1 on the Interpol watch list.
He just lifts a hand towards him. The defense rests.
That would be very unkind of you, however. Don't do that.
I know, but diplomacy, taking things slowly and trying to work through issues rather than causing possible nuclear level destruction of your personal life. I don't lose anything by actually just trying to do this way other than some time. While I could end up losing everything I own and be on the run from the government again.
Question.
Yes?
Again?
17th century.
Uh.
The whole Salem witch trial thing, it was a long havoc thing. Don't worry. Trust me. You don't want to get into that shit show.
Also, I was told I was on a watch list.
You were on a watch list.
Am.
Oh no, I can take care of that.
Lifts a hand towards Nim's character again. The defense rests.
Altemus will be like, I probably would have been if it wasn't for things that I did being classified.
And don't worry, everyone. I promise. Once we give it some time to get to know each other, once we have some time to talk and, find out who everyone is and just become at least okay work buddies. I'm not going to say friends yet because that takes time. Maybe I can have you guys all meet my husband and kind of understand how much help you guys can have from us, too. We can give you guys a lot of help and assistance if you need it.
I'd love to meet your husband. He sounds like a very acceptable fellow.
I think he's visiting the Louvre right now.
Altemus would just be like, I'd prefer to have some blood to study and run tests on.
I mean, I could probably talk him into that. I might have to go on there's this 13th century mansion restoration project they're doing with all these tours and stuff. He's been trying to bother me that he wants to go, so I might have to agree to that, but I might be able to help you out there. He's really big on the art and, pretty much anything that can be considered beautiful, he pays a huge amount of attention to. He's at every big fashion show. in like the front
Oh.
row.
Oh, perhaps finally I can be a true connoisseur and have him explain to me art.
You're going to be here for the next century.
Ah, tragic.
He's probably going to absolutely adore you, though. But you're going to be stuck to his hip for like the next century, and he's going to like consider you his squishy.
Is this another vampire ability?
No, he's just going to be obsessive over you. And if anyone touches you, there's not going to be a zip code of them anymore.
Noted.
Can you
Noted.
take away a code?
No, I mean everything in like a mile radius isn't going to be there anymore when he's done.
No! Look how
He's not really what's he kind of glances over at the other guy. What would be the term? Subtle?
Lacks any kind of subtlety.
Reasonable.
Reasonable, yeah. I mean, so way back in the 10th century when we first met, his idea of a calling card or a love letter to me was murdering an entire village and leaving their bodies artfully displayed for me to find. When I finally caught up to where I thought he was.
Like I said, he's very reasonable.
He's mellowed out.
I can tell that just all the reasonableness just oozing off of this vampire that Ashton is describing.
He's mellowed out since then. I've worked very hard, and he doesn't actually kill anyone anymore. I take that as a very, very big step forward for him, that he doesn't actually cause any
Destruction?
Yes, unless someone threatens me or actually manages to hurt me. Yeah, it doesn't happen very often, but he's been working on it. So I want to be there to support him and help him become better.
Then there is only one thing to do. Should I come to visit, and someday I hope to, I shall bring my bonsai tree, Gregory. He has been passed down through my family, and he is approaching 300 this fall.
I mean, depending on where we're going, we have like 8 different homes around the U.S. and like a couple of smaller buildings we own. So I'm sure you could come to one of them.
I believe it is the only thing in my position that he might appreciate.
I mean, he also appreciates people too. Usually,
I can't visit without bringing me, so I guess that's 2.
He likes uniqueness, so he kind of looks you up and down a little bit. He might really like you, actually. I don't think he would have ever seen anyone quite like you before. So that actually might do something for you.
I'm sure
I have been called things to that effect, yes.
I'm sure it may be treated like getting to see a completely perfectly white wall.
Excuse me?
True. Your colors are very hard to produce.
Had a random PTSD moment there when he said the word.
Yeah. You want to avoid saying. Luckily, I think this place is protected against such things, so we should be fine.
Huh?
Protected against what exactly?
Supernatural creatures. I'm sure they got some protections against, like, changelings and fair folk and mages and stuff. In this case, specifically fair
I don't
folk.
think it is the wisest thing to suddenly name drop a bunch of things they have no exposure to.
Oh, fair. Sorry, my apologies. Don't worry about it.
Explain it to them. Maybe explain it to them if and when it actually comes up.
these are supernatural creatures?
Yeah, we'll get into that later, though. Don't worry. I'll make out a little guide for everyone about like supernatural creatures. It'll be a how-to guide about explaining like here's the basic information for everyone.
Quick question. Can you operate a computer?
He pulls out his cell phone. I do have a cell phone. I do know how to work a computer.
Holy crap. When the hell did you get that?
5-6 years ago.
That explains a lot. I didn't realize they were...
Just don't
Follow.
don't hand him a gun and expect him to know what to do with it.
I know how guns work. I just never really bothered using it.
Okay, Boomer.
He kind of pauses.
Is-
Okay, you're not necessarily wrong.
hold
I
on.
can't be.
I think I witnessed that word.
And you were berating me for mentioning that he only was free on Tuesdays.
I mean, I can't really deny that though. He has a point.
Oh yes,
Actually,
because
he
I
doesn't
didn't
have a
either.
Yes, but
Officially, there's technically a term for people like our good friend here, but I don't think I'm gonna say it because you're gonna repeat it.
Is it
So-
dinosaur?
No.
Look, I might be old, but I'm not that old.
Ancient?
You're 1,000. I think that qualifies.
Wait, no, I know.
It
Senile.
does start
laugh.
with an M.
May I
It does
exchange
start with an
you
M.
our cellular phone numbers?
I am technically a
Megalithic.
millennial. The first millennia.
Maniac.
Why are names suddenly flying around in such a fashion? I don't believe there was any provocation for these.
I think we're teasing each other. Giving each other shits.
Aha, yes, the playful jabbing. I understand.
Do you,
Are you sure? I can explain it to you if you want.
do you analyze things like this every single time they happen around you?
I'm just making observations. I am not in many of these situations myself, but I have read about them in stories.
Altemis will just like pat the librarian on the shoulder.
So there is something I do want to talk to you guys about. I've gone over some of your files, but I want to get the information from you guys necessarily too. I want your input because the only person who knows what you can do is you. And he looks at Enja. Enja, in our team, I would probably assign to you information, research, knowledge, and basically I'm going to shove
Hold
so
up.
much dang info.
Sorry. Side thing, out of character,
Yes.
that I just came across. Paradox owns this?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Why do you think it has so much stuff that's so ridiculously pedantic?
Fair point. I was just shocked to have discovered that.
Paradox
I-
acquired White Wolf, I believe, back at the mid 10s, I want to say.
JT, Paradox is the company that put out Stellaris, City Skylines, and all of those other... there was Surviving Mars, Surviving the Aftermath, you know, all of those super complex, detailed games.
I'm really sad that no one remembers Empire of Sin. I like that game.
Empire of Sin. Which
Yep.
one?
It was a Paradox game where you were basically 1920s Prohibition era gangsters.
Didn't that like just come out?
No, it's been out for like 2 years now, and like nobody fucking notices it. I got it when it first came out. I was really excited to play it, and then I played through it, and I got really good at beating it because when it first came out, you could literally just walk to wherever the boss was and kill them and instantly win. So the game needed balancing it, and they rebalanced it, but like by the time they rebalanced it, everyone was basically already done with the game, and like a month into the game having been released, it was already dead, and I'm so sad about that because it was a good game.
Yeah,
That is unfortunate.
I do
I think
remember
it's-
seeing it, but
meanwhile-
never actually picked it up.
Like literally,
Meanwhile,
it's
I'm here with my 72 Europa Universalis 4 DLC and like 3.6k hours in it.
but yeah,
What-
good.
What I really enjoy about Empire of Sin, and I'm gonna just really quick say this and then get off this topic. What I really enjoy about it is that like when you get into combat, it's like XCOM combat, and then like when you're doing other stuff, it's very much like Stellaris, where you're like making decisions and political stuff. But anyways, go on.
Yeah, no, Paradox, I think, got late 2000s or early 2010s, I want to say. I believe
It was
around-
2015.
Okay, yeah. I thought it was more towards the mid or early 2010s. But yeah, no. They've owned it for a while now. Yes. Benja, and I would be using your character's name in this, but I don't actually have it.
Cornell Paddle.
Cornell, you said?
Yes. I do believe it's on the sheet.
Okay. Oh, yes. Cornell, I would have you be our knowledge person, basically. I would ram as much information as you can take, and basically you would be in charge of research, studying, and basically being our go-to guy for when it comes to like straight up information.
Very acceptable.
I thought you might be okay with that.
Yes.
He looks over at Nim's character. I was thinking you would be our electronic specialist and dealing with all things computers or anything of that related.
But of course.
Deadpan look at Moriarty. High explosives, blowing shit up.
Nod.
Towards the priest. I'm not exactly 100% sure of which way to go with you. I would want to ask you, what would you feel like you would be most comfortable doing?
The priest closes his eyes and thinking and wonders. Honestly, at this point, I am not entirely sure, because I am actually an specialist in close combat. But as we have already established, that is not exactly the most effective method when it comes to dealing with these that we're supposed to be dealing with. So I'm actually trying to think what I could add.
Well, no. Close combat is not necessarily recommended, but it's not something that is necessarily... I didn't get this good because I have a magic sword. I trained, I practiced, I worked at it, and I can help you with that. If you want to become a close range specialist, I can assist you with that.
That is what I trained for thus far. So I would appreciate the extra help if you.
I can do that. I warn you, I'm going to put you through hell. I am going to make you hate yourself. I am going to make your body despise you with every fiber of its being. You are going to go to bed every single day with your body roaring in agony at you. But I promise you that everything that I do is going to be training to make sure that you survive when you come across a supernatural creature.
As long as I can be of service for my lord, it would all be worth it in the end.
He'll nod. Having a close quarter specialist can be very surprising as well. Usually, most creatures won't see that coming, and you'll have the element of surprise. It'll only last a second, but sometimes a second is all you need to put them down.
Indeed.
That is an admirable trade, Sir Priest.
He will look to brain work again. Name. I'm still learning names. Graham's character. Brain.
Corinne Altemis.
Are we doing names now?
I'm just trying to get used to people's names. I'm
Martin.
We're gonna have to go over this again, anyways. Next time we play, but you know.
I'm Martin.
Medic, and pretty much making sure anyone who gets hurt gets patched up, as well as, well, perhaps helping research how to cure vampirism and such.
I'm also pretty handy with a gun.
He's gonna kind of actually consider that for a second. So, one of the things that can be very handy is if we pair you up with the priest, even though guns might not be very effective necessarily against the supernatural, like you might not be able to put a creature down with a shot, but even if you say blow a vampire's knee off, they're still going to need a few seconds to recover from, oh shit, I just lost my leg, I need to regrow it.
Oh, I have no problem providing fire support.
And he looks over at the priest. Having someone who can basically back you up and basically support you with gunfire, it takes a lot of training to necessarily be really good at it, to make sure, like, such as he won't hit you and everything, but you two could be a very effective team that way.
And if they rip your arm off, I could reattach it for you.
I mean, think positive.
It would be very inconvenient to lose my arm, because that is what I use to fight, so I appreciate that.
And he's going to look over at our last member. Did you have a name for yours?
Me?
Yes.
It's Griff.
And Griff, what would you feel your greatest strengths would be?
I'm good at making things. I'm good at hitting things. And I know who to talk to if you need to get some low-budget materials for a good price.
Very handy. So, when it comes to like the essence of a hunt, when it comes to the steps of it, let's say we have a creature that's in a high-rise building and by itself. There are multiple ways that we could try to take that on, but actually, would you guys mind doing a thought experiment? I want to see how you guys think.
Okay.
By all means.
Of course.
Go right ahead.
He looks over. Would that be okay to do?
Go right ahead.
How do I participate in this thought experiment?
It's simple.
You think?
All right, so I'm going to lay out a scenario. I might not give you all the information, so ask pertinent questions. Ask anything, no matter how small or stupid it may be. Feel free to ask, and I will answer the questions and I will clarify. and I will add in stuff. I will treat this as you guys say doing research, like what you would need to do in the fields. You are hunting a vampire. You know where the vampire is. He is in a local high-rise building that is owned by some of the more rich and affluent members of the city, let's say. How would you go about trying to hunt this vampire? I'm giving you only the very bare basics right now. Basically, you've gotten the job. How would you try to tackle this?
First and foremost, we'd have to discover what type of vampire it is, probably based off of whatever victims or destruction it left in its wake that led us to needing to hunt it to begin with.
Ashton snaps his fingers and nods. You would be able to research. You would discover it is a... Oh, 1 second. You would find, with enough research and work, you would be able to identify the vampire as belonging to Clan Ventru. They are a high class. They consider themselves to be like the rulers, the ones in charge. And it seems like he's feeding on high affluent people, which is probably why he's staying here. Very rich food source for him.
Is this building or the area controlled by vampires of this specific clan? Or whatever you would call the vampire group?
Smiles. Yes, it is owned by the Ventru. It is one of their holdings. Though they do let normal people use it, it's basically used as a place to find food if they need it.
Then obviously taking action in said high-rise would be inadvisable, as it'd probably draw too much attention from too many vampires.
Do we know where they are?
They're in a high-rise.
Well,
Where specifically in the high rise?
You would be able to find a penthouse suite at the very top of the building.
I imagine there'd be elevators in this building.
Correct. Yes, there are.
And if there's a penthouse, there'd usually be some sort of private lift all the way up. Or a service lift.
Correct, there is. There would be a private elevator specifically for that suite.
Well, we've got a hacker man on our team who seems confident in being able to erase records. What about rewriting them? Give us some clearances to stage a fire inspection, maintenance on the building.
And then create a fire.
No.
Could you maybe
no,
give
Martin.
me some? Could you maybe give me something challenging?
Yes, you would be able to do that. Based on what I know about this team, that would be something that would be very easy to do. Their systems would likely not be very updated. They would have computers, of course, but the security, I don't think, would be that great. They don't usually get with the times unless it bites
The
them in
largest problem is that this entire building would be filled with vampires of the same clan.
You
Which
would
is
be
why
able to
we
find
start a
there.
fire.
You would be able to find there. He is the only vampire that is currently staying there. The clan
Oh
owns
no,
the,
Martin.
the clan owns the building, but he is the only vampire who actually calls it home. Otherwise, it's basically like a pantry.
I would stage ourselves as maintenance or some sort of fire service doing a inspection. Bring all the elevators down to the ground floor, inspect them, shut them off, secure the stairways, and go up. blocking off any way of escape for them.
With fire.
Not with fire, Martin.
Altemus
As
would be
there's
like,
civilians in the building.
Yes.
Not to mention, if you set fire to the building, you'll probably set fire to other buildings around it. And us
Altemus-
in the building.
A tower large enough with a penthouse could likely have a contained fire. That being stated, I know how to contain and control fire.
I would
That's the
say,
point.
considering that there's a private elevator up to this penthouse, and the fact that we're posing as maintenance workers, we could take advantage of the maintenance spaces to set up an ambush. Or
I
at
like it.
very least a trap.
I will add in, since you were able to get into the computer systems, there are cameras in the penthouse that you would have access to. So you would be able to get a full layout of the actual penthouse through the camera.
Would I at least bring incendiary grenades?
I think dropping several incendiary grenades into the top maintenance hatch of an elevator would be a very good idea.
May we at least have the firefighters on standby, so that the whole building is not.
A simple matter of some, hacking into their database, sending out emails of a notice to vacate immediately for hazardous, fill in the blank here, and get all of the civilians out.
That could work. That could work very well.
Especially if you don't send it to the penthouse.
And if we can contain the damage to a small area, we can probably blame it on some kind of either mechanical malfunction or gas leak.
An electrical fire would be very, very easy to reproduce.
One of my toys could probably send a shockwave through the wiring and such.
Of course, if we didn't
Unfortunately,
care.
this is the least opportune outcome of killing the vampire, more than likely.
If we didn't care so much about public appearance, we could always make an act of terrorism.
Well, you are one of the things you have to, I want to say is during the day, most vampires are going to be inactive and asleep. It's usually very difficult for a vampire to awaken and function during the day when the sun is actually out, especially at around noon. Vampires will
makes
usually spend the entire day asleep, somewhere they will consider safe.
Makes it all the simpler then, doesn't it?
He nods. So far, your plan has been very effective, I have to say.
I do have a question.
Yes.
What's their follow-up in case the Ventru decides to swan dive outside of his penthouse?
It's during the day.
This is why I would also recommend potentially using the elevator.
And when did you, in this mess, confirm that this is a vampire who will, in fact, for sure die the moment it touches sunlight?
He did do research on them.
Yes, but did you confirm that? After all, in this entire mess, I never heard anything being mentioned about, him not having an ability that could let him resist sunlight for him. That does exist.
I only said he was Ventrue. I never said what his abilities were.
That's what I heard as well. So what's your follow-up once he jumps out of the window?
Again, I did ask if we, based off of the information we would have found off of his victims, and
But what I think he's getting at here is what you might see from the victims, which I did describe, does not necessarily mean what his power set would be. That would probably require much further digging, which is why I did
And
not
this is-
say anything.
And this is a very frank reminder that there is a reason why we recommend that you have so many plans.
The Ventru are masters of manipulating minds. They can make you see things or believe things that you not necessarily would normally do, or they can just take over your mind. Another type of vampire that I have faced before, the La Sombra, can manipulate shadows. They can literally make your shadow strangle you, they can bring it to life as an actual person. Or they can just walk through shadows and go anywhere a shadow is. They are very, very difficult to put down. We've mentioned the flesh crafters who can literally touch you and turn you into a ball of quivering flesh. Those are just 3 of the many, many clans that exist. But
The problem is that determining powers requires that the organization has information on that specific vampire, if we can attain its name,
usually
or provoking a response that would require it to show its powers.
That is true. That is true. Usually, most vampires of a specific clan will have specific abilities. In my own experience, they do not usually most vampires, except the flesh crafters, cannot touch you and turn you into a chair of flesh. They can't. They cannot use that ability for whatever reason. Just like most vampires cannot just look you in the eye and take over your mind unless they are a Ventru. It's not safe to necessarily assume they can't do it, but Ventru is usually going to have possibility of super speed, super strength, super durability. Assume every vampire can do that, and usually at least 1 or 2 other specific tricks for whichever kind of group they're in. If you can find out more information, find out as much as you can. If you can figure out some way of what they've been seen doing from sources that you can find out, that you can make, do it. Otherwise, this is something that's going to come with experience. This is one of the reasons I'm here, to be able to answer a question just like this. One of the other things you may want to attempt that I might recommend, your plan so far though, I think is fairly solid to deal with most minor vampires.
Another option
Oh, it
that we could
absolutely
pursue.
is. I am just.
Another
I
option
would agree
is
that the.
putting in a little bit of a report that the building doesn't actually have as many apartments as they seem to be selling and renting out.
If we wanted, that is a good idea. One of the other ideas that I might recommend is to try to remove us from the equation entirely. I would have our resident explosive expert rig the penthouse elevator with incendiaries. I would have our
Yes.
electronic specialist rig it with cameras, and then when the vampire went into it, when a general evacuation order went up, I would detonate them and basically turn the entire elevator into...
Alchemist will be like, that would come down to behavioral. We'd have to understand his behavior, because usually during evacuations, elevators are shut down, so...
It's not an emergency.
I enjoy the idea of an incendiary bouquet.
I'm just giving you an example of something I might try to do if I was not willing to face the vampire in open combat. We do not necessarily play fair. If you play fair, if you are not good, really, really fucking good and lucky, you will die. You hit them when they least expect it. You hit them in the places they won't expect. The most mundane things. You figure out what their routines are, what they do every day, and you use that against them. If you know where they're going to be without fail, if they always go to a certain place at 6 o'clock, you know exactly where they're going to be and you can plan an ambush. But that's just an example here. But no, everything you guys were saying was right on. Like, I would be willing to, like, okay an op based on most of the information you guys were giving me. For a first time effort so far, you guys have done wonderful.
Although, again, as the suited man is mentioned,
Agent Smith.
killing the yes, Agent Smith. Sorry, I actually forgot in out of character what his name. Agent Smith. As Agent Smith has said, killing the vampire is basically the bronze trophy of operations.
Capturing it.
It's acceptable, but it's not the most ideal.
Right now, my first goal with all of you. My step 1 is getting you guys to the point that you can survive. That's step 1, is training you all up to the point that you will be able to survive an encounter. Once I feel that you are able to do that, and I mean, right now I'm already impressed, so it might not take as much time as you guys might think on that part.
By the way, how high is this high rise? Because I'm wondering how long a vampire might writhe in pain if you just drop the elevator to the bottom.
Let's go 10 stories.
That's, I guess that's technically a high rise, but definitely not high enough that I would even remotely consider it to be more than a mild inconvenience to a vampire.
Yes, what do you do when the... Oh, go ahead.
I still say simple incendiary explosive rounds would be enough, and simply marking it as an act of terrorism would be very easy.
Or, mechanical, or we could, again, mechanical failure or something.
Mechanical failure on the lift plus incendiary. And if we make sure the doors at the bottom cannot open, it'll be like a crucible.
These are affluent individuals. Assassins are not unheard of.
What do you do about the 24 bodyguards then?
They knew the
A
risk.
simple payroll malfunction. Perhaps their last paychecks bounced.
Oh, that's okay. Misconception number 1: you're assuming that they're working for me.
Instead of being this is a vampire that mind controls people. Chances are that they are very likely to be forcibly enlisted.
It is not
Just
a bad
as a
idea.
reminder of what I mentioned earlier, that many blank bodies will in fact employ will employ a couple Bellas in order to protect them.
They're going to be, when it comes to a ghoul, the only thing they usually care about is the vampire. They are literally going to be so devoted to the vampire, they could be ordered to die and they will do so with a smile on their face.
That is how much they love and adore the vampire, and it's not their faults.
Does killing the vampire end this?
No.
Hmm.
It takes time for them to be off the blood. And this is assuming that they won't go and find another master in the
Yes,
you know,
I still
within the
feel
week.
that using the elevator to eliminate the vampire through incendiary means, and again, I still feel making it look like a mechanical accident would be the most effective means for not drawing attention from others in its clan. You make it a terrorist act, and I feel like they might suspect more
Or
knowledgeable intentions, that this was a target instead of a vampire just happened to die in a horrific accident. It was, I think, a vampire specifically being targeted might draw a little bit more attention from them than just a horrible mishap.
Or, hear me out here, this will come with time. If you find out that there are rivals with the vampire, what if you leave marks or maybe a paper trail, as he looks at Zim's character, leading back towards that person who did it? I agree with the sentiment, but we do want you staying out of the politics of the matter as much as possible to begin with. Fair. The idiosyncrasies of their political system will, you'll learn it in time. More just a way to make sure no one tries to kill them.
Because we need to
Well,
not
yes,
only
but
consider
in
our
your thought experiment, I do want to point out that you did specifically say it was a venture. They aren't exactly well liked. That's true. And by that I mean that basically everyone despises them. But yes, so without getting into the weeds and worrying about the whole political aspect, just focus on how to tag or bag.
I still say that some thought should be at least considered into delaying or drawing attention to ourselves after the fact.
Oh, I'm not saying that you shouldn't worry about that at all. You still have to worry about the mortal side after all. I'm talking about worrying about the supernatural optics.
That's the side I'm a little bit more worried about, if I'm in all honesty. I'd prefer not to have their eye. I'd prefer even more not to have their eyes on us.
Most of the time, they're probably just going to assume we were a tool. That we were being used by a rival to basically further that person's aim. We're not going to be the ones who'd be targeted. It would be the one who was holding the sword, so to speak. They don't necessarily have the best idea for humans.
Of that being their line of thought. Because there's a reason why a messenger says don't shoot the messenger. It doesn't matter if you were a tool or not. There are plenty of people, and I imagine the more powerful, the more likely it is that they'll break the tool and the hand that was holding it, if given the opportunity.
Fair. That's fair. In this sort of scenario, if you would want to take a vampire like this alive, you would. It's going to be much more difficult. You would need to find where the vampire is sleeping at. And they're likely to have many mortal ghouls protecting them during the day. So you would need to figure out a way to deal with them. And then you would have to find the vampire and incapacitate them before they woke up and fully came back into their own.
Is there a... I guess I should say a rough estimate of a vampire of this level? 'Cause I would assume we'd be able to figure out its kind of age if we were doing this. Is there a way that would be able to determine how long it would take between a ruckus, the vampire being awoken and it becoming active enough to pose a serious problem? How long would we have? Say we started a gunfight with the ghoul, the Bellas and Renfields. How long would we have to potentially deal with them after starting this and reaching the vampire in time to stake it before staking it becomes a increasingly deadly task?
That would be difficult to say for sure, simply because even with the age, it's more of a... You know how some humans are a very deep sleeper and can sleep through an explosion, while others will wake up literally at the sound of a draft of wind?
Yes, but you did say that at noon that
It's the hardest
essentially there
time
is
for them
a...
to wake up.
Yes.
I would say yes. If they are well fed, they could force themselves to wake up. They probably would not be at the top of their game if they did a forced awakening like that. But they would recover within like 20 to 30 seconds at most. Even then, I wouldn't want any of you to be around a vampire like that.
So it would definitely have to be something that we'd have to reach the vampire unnoticed.
He considers something and then looks over at Nim's character. I have a question for you with your computer knowledge and such. This is my own curiosity.
Yes.
Would you be able to take over the fans and other such systems?
Right now, no, but eventually, yes. I only get so many perks at the character creation.
I know, but I'm just using that, so it's something you could eventually do theoretically.
Oh, that's one I plan to pick up, yes.
So he looks over at the doctor. Tell me, how hard would it be to create a airborne sedative?
It's really more about concentration, but aerosolizing a sedative is not very... isn't necessarily hard, as that's already a thing in the medical field. It's what general anesthesia is. We just need enough of it or a more powerful variant of it.
And you guys have already established that you guys can go into the maintenance areas of the building.
Yes, I suppose we could theoretically plant canisters on timers or remote triggers into the vents of said apartment.
If I can say this from experience, they might be stuffer, they might be stronger, and they might be faster than a normal human. But they still need to breathe. And if you have something that could knock them out quickly, you could probably put them all down without a fight. And then go in with, say, gas masks and deal with the vampire immediately. And just hope that there isn't another vampire there that you weren't expecting. That's just being a little like, well, you never know what kind of shit could actually happen.
This is why I keep saying mostly, because, you can't even take these things for granted when dealing with one of these blank bodies.
What?
I don't care how certain you are about one or the other thing happening, it's never for certain.
One of the things I would recommend to all of you is my first lesson. If you can avoid a fight, avoid the fights. We are soft, we are squishy, and we are very, very easy to rip into many, many small bite-sized pieces. If you can avoid getting into an open fight with a supernatural creature, do it. It doesn't matter if you have to back off. It doesn't matter if you have to wait. If there is not immediate threat to people dying, don't try to engage if you don't have to. Set up the battle and put every single little bit into your favor first before you act. If you can take them down before they even realize they're in a fight, that's the best way to survive.
Basically, invite them to a canyon and then collapse that canyon around them.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm sure Agent Smith wouldn't like this, but the sort of go-to situation, like back in like the 13th, 14th, 15th century, vampires like to live in like manors that were out at the outskirts of places and such. They like to live in the big manors and away from people. Literally, what we would do is go in during the day, set the entire place on fire, watch it burn, and then make sure everything inside of it burned with it.
Please do not go burning around buildings. Burning down buildings.
Yes, which is not really looked upon very well right now. If it's depending on how old the vampire was, most vampires you could probably get away with facing and dealing with like how you guys are describing. If it was someone like my husband, woe be to whoever sorry asshole tries to actually hurt him. The only possible chance you probably have at even having like a snowball's chance is blowing up the building, setting it on fire, and then blowing it up again in broad daylight and hoping to God it's enough.
Older vampires are always a pain to deal with.
How formidable.
Don't worry, it gets worse.
Yeah, vampires are like... It's kind of sad to say, but vampires are kind of easy mode. They can only go out during the night.
This is why we're starting you off with the blank bodies. They're the most prolific, and they're also simultaneously the easiest to deal with.
He's gonna look over at Elemen, the priest. We will want to go over prayers and blessings and such. When we get to our lesson on ghosts and dealing with them, you're going to want to know those things.
Priest. The priest nods.
Another big important thing. Paranoia is your friend. Assume anyone and everyone is basically property of a supernatural creature until proven otherwise. That's not to say you can't have friends and such, but you still want to be careful. Because all it takes is one tiny little mistake to get you and everyone you care about dead.
So then, what's our proof that you're not actually being manipulated by a supernatural being? As you have openly admitted to being married to a vampire and partaking of his blood.
I have a sword with a nail from the crucifixion in it.
Again, I don't necessarily see how that disproves you being controlled.
Well, from my
Most
understanding,
sufficiently significant or powerful artifacts will impart some manner of defenses onto their wielder.
Yeah, I can't lie when I'm using this. I can't deceive people. I have to be honorable, and I have to offer redemption to those I meet. If I don't, I lose my sword.
What's your social security number?
He just doesn't answer.
is underhanded.
I don't need to answer questions, I just can't lie. Within
Well,
reason.
How fortunate.
Is there any... I guess I should, is there a way that you'd be able to prove that you can't lie? Like, if one of us takes the sword and then tries to lie, would it affect us in the same way?
You would probably drop it, and you wouldn't be able to use any of its abilities or anything.
So it is a provable thing, then.
As Ashton draws his longsword, and the blade just ignites with like a beautiful white light.
Again, that's real fancy and all, but that wasn't really the point.
No, as he turns the handle to you and offers it.
All right.
The sword
He'll take the handle. He'll grab the handle then.
The sword is a very black and white minded person. It is very, very judgmental, you could say. You are either just or you are unjust.
Corinne will basically attempt to lie about his name. Because everyone already knows his name.
As the sword's light goes out completely.
Theory proven, then. And he will hand the sword back to, Ashton.
There is no second chance in the eyes of the blade.
It is very like I said, black and white. There is only good and not good.
So
God,
if
we're
if it were to see you as not good, would it never be able to see you as good again? That's what I meant to that's what I meant to ask.
You could probably seek redemption, but
I
it would
see.
be difficult depending
I
on what you did. For that, I
see.
don't think it'd be that big of a deal for him to seek redemption to possibly try to wield it again.
I
Just
see.
be like, I'm very sorry I lied about my name that you all already knew.
I don't know what sarcasm would fall under, but I don't think that would be sufficient.
You'd probably need to be a little bit more sincere sounding than that, but I guess.
It does have like, I mean, it does come in handy a little bit because it's like, I mean, if a supernatural creature knows me, they know I'm not going to be lying to them. If I tell them something, it's going to be true.
Yes, but the value of what I just did proves that. At least to me it does. It means that we can always basically take what you're saying at face value.
Yes. I am not out to lie or deceive. I am out to save everyone that I can.
Again, I merely had to perform the experiment because you can say anything you want to. Anyone can say anything they want to. But proof is another matter entirely.
Will warn you, if you ever meet my husband, he can make you believe some really crazy things. He's quite the talker.
Ooh,
I am a man of science. I prefer proof over mere theoretics.
Never met my husband. But yes, that does remind me too. Where would you guys like to go eat at? My treat.
It is about 11 and I need to go to bed.
Exactly. That's why I was using this as a segue.
Huzzah.
Yep. I was gonna end it really soon, anyways.
Once when I was feeling particularly adventurous, I came across a Thai place with these sweet and chewy flat noodles that they called rice noodles. They were excellent in a stir fry.
You don't get out much, do you?
I do not. I go home and tend to my plants for the most part, and then sit down with another book I have taken from the library. Of course, I return it when I am done.
I'm going to ask this, knowing I'm going to be probably disappointed a little bit. Do you at least read romance novels, my librarian friend?
I do, actually. I am quite particular to them. However, I do also tend to be quite judgmental afterwards.
Althemis will pat you on the back.
Oh, maybe sometime when we have some time available. I know some really wonderful bird feeding places. That's where I like to spend my time when I'm not like volunteering at a homeless shelter or anything. I like feeding the birds.
Fascinating.
Anyway, I got to go.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, all.
Good night.
This was quite fun.
I actually jokingly put under I made a touchstone for Ashton of his birds because he always likes to take time to spend time with his birds and feed them.
That is nice. And
It-
now you've witnessed some more of the lameness of my library.
Ashton, this is my baby. I will protect my baby. I will fucking murder anyone who touches my baby.
He is He is a maximum level dork.
He is a sweet and innocent baby. He must be protected.
Fair enough.
To be fair, he feels that like basically about almost all of you.
Hooray!
Also,
are-
Moriarty, no strapping explosives to my birds.
Ah!
No, birds are friends.
Birds are devices.
Birds are sweet, innocent babies, and all they want is some bird seed, so we give them bird seed.
Listen, I
Oh,
can
Martin,
make.
that's what we have drones for.
But listen. If you know, if you can have a swallow that carries a full coconut, you can have a bird that carries a full grenade.
I mean,
There have been
You-
many.
I mean,
fictitious
How is it
articles
going to
stating that
pull
birds
the
are
grenade
not,
pin?
In fact, real.
no, I mean there was a legitimate. This has actually happened. I think it was World War II. There was an experiment in getting bats to carry explosives. They gave them little bomber jackets.
Okay, we do bomb.
And when they went to roost they were set free and supposed to roost in the eaves of the fake model town that they had set up in the desert, and instead they went back to where they came from, which was the military base, and they nested in the eaves of the military base, and then exploded. That was one of your plans as well, you US lot.
By the way, I
No.
just want to point out that that's still not nearly as metal as Olga of Kiev's pro gamer move.
Yes. Oh my god, Olga of Kiev.
Oh shit!
Also-
Was that the one where she like fucking put like flaming arrow? Like she had carrier pigeons carry flaming
Sulfur
arrows. or some
sacks.
shit? Sulfur sacks. That was
she
it.
she demanded birds be handed to her, like 3 birds from every house. Attached a bunch of sulfur sacks to the bottom, lit like a piece of paper, so that way they'd like get scared and they'd fly back to where they came from, and burn down the entire village. I love
Yeah.
Olga.
Olga's great, yeah.
Moriarty, you are not allowed to meet Cooney the Wonder Coon.
Why?
Because you might try to put explosives on him, and he is a sweet, innocent boy who likes hot dogs.
Is he a vampire?
No, he's a raccoon.
Why would I try to blow him up?
Because you might try to use him as a weapon against a vampire.
Or a werewolf.
If he's a walking, talking person and/or raccoon, he's perfectly acceptable as a weapon as is.
No, he's
I'll
just a
give him-
raccoon.
He can use a flamethrower, I'm sure.
No, he just has a little cape. That's why he's Cooney the Wonder Coon.
Right, and I will supply him with the flamethrower.
No, he just likes hot dogs. You give him hot dogs.
Animals.
You could attach something to the cape, make him less of a weapon and more of a decoy.
Why would you hurt my babies? They're all I have. I don't have many friends, okay?
Okay, guys, I think I'm gonna head to bed now
Ouch,
myself.
her. Ouch.
No, I'm not. No, this is in character.
I understand, Kerr.
This is a very morally divisive group. there's one side, and then there's the other side.
And then there's me, where I'm just sitting here and letting you all interact.
This is
Lyndon,
true.
we are not giving Cooney the Wonder Coon a flamethrower. No. We give him little hot dogs, and he looks at us and smiles, and then he nibbles on it, and then we give him more, and he is super cute.
As much as I'd like to interact more, I think I'm gonna head to bed now. I'm get brain is shutting down.
Alright, sleep well.
Hi guys.
No, Ohio.
Nighty.
I'm not allowed to. I'm not allowing you near any of my animals.
All right, well, let me go ahead and wrap up this recording.
What about a dragon?
By the way, are you
You don't
all
have a
hearing
dragon.
my fan on the microphone? It is a new mic, so I'm not sure if it's coming through or not.
Uh,
When you
not.
talk,
No.
there's a very faint whirring when you talk,
Okay.
but it is only when you speak.
I'll try the microphone in this position. Maybe it'll be better. But either way, thank you everybody for joining us today for this tabletop preparation session. Sort of. Whatever the hell this is. Check out our website, ZGF
It's easing
Gaming.
you- I'm just going.
Check out our website, zgfgaming.com. We've got links for our Discord, Telegram, Twitter, Patreon, and more. There on the website, as well as down in the description below through our link tree. Thank you to my patrons, donators, and subscribers. You are the ones that keep this channel alive. I seriously cannot do this without your guys' help and support, so thank you. Seriously, I can't. You guys cover my rent and everything, and I am so grateful, and you make it so I can keep bringing these streams to you guys. Consider becoming a patron yourself over at patreon.com/ZGFgaming. It is one of the best ways to support the channel, though you can also do so by simply coming by, hanging out with me, and keeping me company while I'm doing my various streams, as well as sharing the stream around. But for now, thank you for joining, and I bid you the most fondest adieu.
Bye, guys.
Night.
Bye.
Good morning.